Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. Today is Thursday, August 20th. This video is not going up till Saturday. Um, this week kind of flew the fuck by. This is my biggest amount of time without any sort of, I don't want to call it pressure because I could just not put up a video one day. I've been very consistently putting out content now I was putting it out every day, and I decided to go 3 days on, one day off, just because the amount of content that I put out. And so, I have a video going up tonight at 9 p.m. and then skip Friday and then Saturday at 6 in the morning. And so, I have basically 2 days to put a video out. And I already got a shit ton of content, some hilarious stuff. But I wanted to continue where I left off with this one comment. It became the title of my video. And then the other comments about it, and just talk about that, kind of dynamic that exists on the internet. That I get a great deal of enjoyment out of it. When I first started, when you start doing something like this, there is going to be a period of time where, like, people are going to react to you negatively and treat you like shit. And, other people might give you compliments, but it's the people that just say, I don't like you, you suck, and want to dump their inner venom on you, right? Like, this is going to happen when you go out and you post something on the internet. So people are going to be mean to you. And, it didn't really bother me very much at first as much as I thought it would. And when you go out on the internet, like, you can pose and pretend to be somebody you're not, like hide behind some character you create. Many people just don't know who they are, like I was talking about this before. The majority of people have no idea why they do things, why they make the decisions they make, why they make the mistakes they make, why they're attracted to people that are bad for them, for example, why they drink alcohol or are addicted to gambling or, whatever it is, right? They have these compulsions and they don't understand what makes them do it. That's why there's a therapy industry. Like, people just don't understand what makes them tick. And it's always fascinated me. I had this first attempt at college in Florida where my parents kind of got me into college, and, I didn't know what was going on. My dad was a guidance counselor, and we had no conversations about what I was going to do after high school. Like, zero. Like, never talked about it. Maybe when I was, like, really young, but it wasn't about, like, college or whatever. I wanted to be a naturalist, one of those a crocodile guy from Australia, but there was this guy from called Mutual Omaha's Wild Kingdom, and this guy went to various places and studied animals and things like that. Something I'm still passionate about, not as much as an adult, but as a kid, it was like my obvious thing I wanted to do, right? Because I was just into that kind of thing. I, would spend hours in the library researching, reading adult books and encyclopedias about animal life and things like this, the natural world. Now that I do the meditation, it's less than, it's not as important, but it's something I enjoy still. And, so I was just clueless and not, I thought I was going to play basketball. That was the thing, and that didn't work out. So, and really wasn't going to work out, like, in terms of, I mean, it could have, because I had enough, basketball talent to get like a scholarship or something like that. But even then, I needed to have a focus on what I was going to do with my life. And I ended up taking a psychology class and was really interested in it. So then when I went to my second attempt at college, I didn't think I could be a therapist because couldn't see myself sitting there and listening to people's problems, which I still know that is a weakness in terms of my psychological knowledge because I have a master's in counseling, but I just don't. The therapeutic model where people just, whine about their problems but do nothing to solve them because they don't want to change, right? Like, I've been in the change business now for a number of years, and I took all these classes, psychology classes, and I wanted to, figure out, like, what made other people do what they did and what made me do what I did, right? Like, trying to understand the internal world. Like, I was fascinated by what goes on inside of people. And if you go on the internet and you don't create a false persona and you actually believe in things and you put yourself out there, like me talking about Sajmarg meditation or me just talking about what I believe in, and then, talking about things in my life and things like that. People are going to try to shit all over that. Like, it's just how it is. Like, people just absolutely suck and are vicious and are going to shit all over it. And, in the beginning, it bothered me to some extent. I mean, I think the thing that was worse was the worst thing for me is my kids were milking cows and goats. And some creep showed up and he took sexual pleasure in watching cows get milked, and he would say sexual things. And I blocked the guy, which I didn't really understand how to do. And I thought that meant the guy couldn't watch my videos anymore. Otherwise, I probably would have taken down my channel or stopped putting out content because it was just creepy that this guy was sexually, whatever, to, me and my kids milking cows. Like there's some fucking pervert out there. And so, and I was like, this is, I would rather, I didn't want my, kids connect, any kind of energetic connection that's there with, creepy motherfuckers that are there. And, and this was one guy who came out and said stuff, but there were probably other people out there who were like, there's just so many freaks out there. So many just freaky motherfuckers out there. Twisted and broken. I mean, human beings are monstrous abominations. What's inside their internal world, what they've become, demonic, the negative, gross, shitty things. And so, you can feel the energy, like when you connect with people that are just shitty and crazy and just, disturbed, and like people want to connect with you. Like that's what this is all about. Because it's an intimate relationship. People, when they make themselves vulnerable and try to build somebody up, they give somebody a compliment, in a real way, not a way where they're trying to get something. People are opening themselves up to, they want to have some kind of more connection with you, right? And then people with, like, who are negative, they also want to have a connection with you, like a, intimate connection. If they take something that's like, a vulnerability, like when my daughter committed suicide, I knew there'd be people that would use it as a weapon against me, like use it as some way to try to hurt me, because there's just, people out there like that. But by that time, I, really was more or less, it was positive for me when I got negative comments. Like sometimes I would look for them so I could just unload on them. And, like most, they always made me laugh. Like the good ones make me laugh, right? Like some of them, like even if it's something like somebody, there's two people there talking about how I had a nice voice. And then a third person came in and said, one person said something to the extent, I really love to hear you speak. I love to listen to you. I love to hear you talk. And then somebody wrote, not as much as he likes to hear himself talk, which isn't really true, but it's funny. Like that's a great burn, like that's, and I got a chuckle out of it because it's, I don't really actually like to hear. After hours and hours of listening to myself, which I was talking about in my last voiceover, and I initially didn't like hearing my voice when I was a kid. When I had one of those tape recorders, you had to press both buttons, and when you hear your voice back, and it's like that's what I sound like, because you don't hear your own voice. And so when I first started to listen, and maybe to some extent, and here on YouTube. Now I'm pretty just neutral about it. But either way, it's a good burn. It's funny. Like some of those things are funny. And, we used to make fun of each other. I grew up in the Northeast where people are just brutal. My family was brutal, saying things to each other, just, making fun of each other. And, I kind of enjoyed that. And I didn't really, for the most part, take things personally. Like I just, because, before I started to meditate, I was self-reflective, and I knew that there was things, just selfish thoughts, or just, not caring about people, or just, hurt people's feelings, or just whatever it was, and I was like a failure, like I just was low functioning, like when when you're underachieving and you have talents, and you're not exercising any of those talents, and everything that you attempt kind of goes south. I couldn't find my place in the world. I didn't feel like, I mean, there was legitimate issues. Like I felt like I was an underachiever, which I totally was, and I mean, I've changed my definition. When you're defining yourself by material success, when you're defining yourself by, like here, if you think about my YouTube channel, I have a dwindling 200,000 subscribers that's gone down to like 195 or something. Slowly eroding away at my subscribers, which means absolutely nothing because it's about views. Like you can have millions of subscribers, you can have a really good video that pops, and everybody subscribes to you. You could have some viral video and you have 1 million subscribers, and then you're getting a couple hundred views per your other videos. Really, what matters is your view count. Like how many views are you getting? And YouTube is suppressing my views and it's not promoting my channel. But by this time, I'm not in any way, shape, or form. I mean, not only I'm not pandering to dumb fucks, I'm pushing back against dumb fucks. Like, people have to sort of invest time and energy into figuring me out as a presenter, as a creator here. That's what they call you, YouTube creators. They have to figure me out, like, because I'm not like, anybody else out here. Like, there's just a lot of people who are knockoffs of somebody else, and they all fall in some sort of genre. But people have to kind of listen and figure out what my content's about, right? Like, I'm getting all these get to the point. What's the point? And those when you get a lot of comments, like I was saying in my last you know my last voiceover in my last video, that when you get a lot of comments where people say the same thing, it's usually some kind of strategic ploy, right? They're trying to, you know, undermine you, get your confidence, or they're trying to, plant seeds of doubt in your audience who reads it. And yes, guy never gets to the point, right? Why doesn't he get to the point? But I do, because I have a very central point here. The point of this channel, you can go through hours of content, and this is the simplistic. I mean, the Sajmark system is simple, and one of the teachings Babaji said, the second master, is that God is simple. So the means, the system you use to connect to God has to also be very simple, which is, in our case, meditation, cleaning, and transmission. 3 very simple things. And that, God is subtle also. The system has to be subtle, I think he said. But simple and subtle are words that are, positive words in the Sajmark system. Like, people want to be complex. People want to create drama. They think being complex and having a complex personality is interesting, and people want to be interesting in some way, but usually that means, just gross shit. It means spiritual grossness. It means layers of whatever it is. But the simplicity behind my channel is that God is inside you, God's your friend, and that to move forward as a species, people have to elevate that relationship. And there's a meditation system that I use that, is designed specifically for that. And people of the future are going to have to use that system in whatever form. It doesn't matter. Like, you can, call it, the organization itself has fallen apart, with this heartfulness debacle, but the method still remains. The method of transmission, God's energy, and cleaning out everything that blocks the path, and you focusing in on your innermost core of your heart to figure out, not to figure out, to connect with the divinity within you. And that's what's got to happen. Like, we have a people problem. And to demonstrate that, I make and mock and make fun of all these so-called successful people, influential people, and show you that, it's false gold. It's their, they might have wealth, and they might have fame, and they might have power, and they might have all of those things. And most of them do have some of that. And one of those things, or all of them. And these people are miserable, and they clearly are not the cream of the crop. Like, even though that they're successful and they have power and they're, out there in front of people, they are not they're not the most evolved people. They are usually on a lower level of evolution. Like, many people who are more evolved than him, or everyone who's more evolved than them, either comes from a higher place in the cosmos. Their soul is already, in a higher proximity in terms of their relationship to God. Like, your evolution is about your journey towards back to the source. Like, every soul is finding its way back to the source. God is in the center. Let's again, very simple teachings of the Sajmark system. God is in the center, your spiritual center, which is, starts off with your heart and then goes into these other, you know, centers, these other, centers within centers, right? But there's, it starts off with your heart and then you go inwards. But you're in the periphery somewhere. You're, especially being in a human body, you're in a gross physical form. With you have your subtle soul, like your energetic being, a being without body, right? Your soul is more subtle and closer to God than your physical body. Your physical body is a vehicle in which you experience third dimensional reality, right? And so you have these impressions, these past impressions, these things that you have that are, distorted, um, distorted versions of reality. When people think about like um, these various alternative universes and things, it's really you are an alternative universe, right? The lens in which each person sees the world is an alternative version of reality. There is the reality, one of the books in the Sajmark system is called Reality at Dawn, because you're supposed to meditate before dawn, because when dusk and dawn happen, there's a balance in the universe. And if you've ever been out at sunrise or sunset, you can feel the spiritual energy. Like there's a peace. There's a balance between light and darkness, right? The day is starting and the night is going away. And there's this transition and there's this balance and harmony because you have both things, right? There's the light that, that celebrates your body and, starts the day, the energy from the sun that powers everything. And the night where your soul, where you go to sleep and you're in the alternative universe of your, not alternative, you're in the spiritual realm of your existence, right? You have a spirit and you have a body, you have a soul and a body, and you have these two aspects of yourself. The peace of the night, where your body can recharge and shut itself off, and your soul can wander around and process your day and do these things. And then the dusk and dawn is when these two things meet, right? The balance. And so when meditating at these times, it's just better. The meditation is just better, right before sunrise. And then, meditating, there's also these other times where it's good to meditate, but there's this harmony, reality at dawn. So a human being has created their world view. And when you talk to people, sometimes you're like, wow, you're fucking fucked in the head. Like you're really, the way that you have such a warped version of reality. And then there's spiritual people that see things at such a different level that if they told you your reality, you'd think they're crazy, but they are much closer to God. And they've been purified to whatever extent, right? Because everyone's created their alternative universe, their view of the world. And, there's a distortion, and how much of the distortion is there is, how hard it's going to be for you to be, an authentic person that is a reflection of who you are as a soul. You have somebody who has a very gentle soul, a sweet soul, which pretty much all souls are sweet, in their purest level. But then they become, violent and angry, and they have this persona that is, in total contrast to who they are as a person. And you feel their soul energy. That you have a woman who dates some violent guy, and she, goes beyond his outside persona, and she sees that he's got a sweet heart and he's a sweet person, nice person, loving person. And she sees the real person and thinks that she can somehow, ego-driven, tough guy, violent guy, and she thinks she can change him because she sees beyond his, outside persona. Like this happens quite a bit. But the fact is, this is what I was talking about with my ex, right? My ex had spiritual tendencies and was, into spirituality, but like was just a fucking succubus on the outside. And so you see that there's something else there, but people, for the most part, will not access that higher nature. But there is a higher nature, so they, but the ego has gone to this extent to protect itself, to, whatever's happened to the ego, to, make it into something that's an abomination, like not a pure reflection of the divinity that's within the person. So, everybody's soul is looking for what's offered in the Sajmarg meditation, which is to connect back to the source, because that's why you're here. Like, you're here to experience this third dimensional world in a way that helps you, get closer to God. But unfortunately, pretty much everyone's not doing that, right? Like, they're doing the opposite. They're putting on layers and layers of complexity, of, complications and addictions and negativity. Like, if you come in to your first life and you're going to be a poor person, animalistic, no ability for abstract thought, you used to be like a dog or a cow or something in a past life, and now your soul is graduated up to human life, but you're not, an evolved human. You're going to be a laborer. You're going to be, somebody who isn't educated and doesn't have a, great mind yet. You don't have, you know, much complexity. You're coming from instinctual, very physical. You've come from being in like an animal that lives short lives, over a period of time. Let's say you started off as amoeba and you worked your way up through the animal kingdom and transmigration of your soul. Like, this is, I mean, it makes sense, right? Like, this is, now you're evolving in terms of, like, human beings are more evolved than some other creatures, right? They're natural and pure, and they might be more innocent and, and like not as dickish. They're not assholes like animals, but some of them are, right? Like, they just, and then you become an animal that interacts with people. And I saw this when we had dairy cows. Our dairy cows' consciousness was so much more than the beef cows that lived around. There's cattle farms around our farm, and we had dairy cows, and we interacted with the cow every day. The cow would interact with us, and the cow is a service animal, right? It's giving of itself. It's milk. It's meat, and even its pee and its poop are beneficial to a farmer. And then, the other farm animals that interact with people, of course, dogs and cats, animals that are around people. Their consciousness is around people. There's a relationship there. There's a connection. And that, helps an animal then become a person. Like, they're around people. There's some kind of upward movement, right? It's like, this is how evolution happens. You can be de-evolve, like, like those women, Jane Fossey, and these people who go out and they love chimpanzees or, that whatever it is, apes, and they go study animals and they get away from people, which is understandable. Animals can be preferable to people. I've talked about myself, but, people are, animals are lesser than you, and you fall in love, you focus on them, and like you go the wrong direction, right? Where your soul is going backwards, right? This is why you find the highest developed spiritual people in your, family or your life. You find these higher developed souls, and you're around them, and it rubs off on you, right? It pulls you up. But then if you're somebody who's, around lower level people, they pull you down, and this is, everyone's had this happen in their life where the good people help elevate them and the bad people pull them down. And so anyways, you live a life where you come up from the animal kingdom and you're a poor person, and you see these other great people. You see kings, you see wealthy people, politicians, famous people, whatever. And you have miserable life, in some ways of poverty and, whatever. So your soul, and, as you maybe have a few lives like that, on a lower level, you start to aspire to be wealthy and powerful. You aspire to be famous, whatever it might be. Because you see these other people and you're like, oh, that's it. That's the goal. And they're above you because they've maybe been here a few more lives than you. They're more evolved than you, but they're not, they're still on a very low level. So then you get that. You get money and power. And then you realize that it didn't make you happy, it made you more unhappy. Like, your soul realized this isn't it. And so you then look at, all right, what do I need to do? And then you look at the spiritual people. You look at the saints, the higher developed souls. And that's what should happen, but it fucking doesn't. People get stuck in that, materialistic idea of happiness. Their soul realizes, their soul's like, yeah, this is not it, right? This is just an experience of what you think you should have. And then, the system itself is, you grow up in the system saying, you want to be materialistically successful. You want to have, accolades. You want to have awards and degrees, and you want to have, trophies and things that you have that show how great you are and how successful your life is, right? But if your life is successful, I mean, look at Trump. You know, I mean, aside from the grifting, he's a billionaire and he's president. Like he should be seen as the most successful person, right? Like he's a celebrity. He had, he was a celebrity. He was in movies and shit like that. He had his own TV show. He was a billionaire, successful businessman. And I mean, one of the elites, the upper 0.001% kind of, the elite of the elite, people who are billionaires. There's just a limited amount of them, right? Small percentage. And then he's president, and then that's just, I mean, all the things, right? And so he's probably, I mean, in history of material success, to be rich and then to be, a lot of people are rich and president and celebrities, but he's, up there. And why is he such a piece of shit? Like, how many people really look up to him? Almost, nobody. Like a small percentage of dumb fucks who are, I mean, they're having their own issues, but he's not. He's obviously not the pinnacle of human evolution. He's not the ultimate expression. If you don't have the capacity to see, you might have to look up at these people and think they're great people. But how many celebrities do you know are great people to all the people in the truth community, people who are consciously aware? Like how many celebrities are, in any capacity, athletes, you know, um, music, models, fucking all of it, politicians, all these celebrities, all these rich and powerful people. How many people do you think are like better than the average person? Even though, by definition of the system, they are. They're on a higher level. They're in the capstone of the pyramid, looking down at everybody. But they're fucking wretches. They're golems. They're miserable, and they're fucking psychologically fucked, and they're just a fucking mess, right? On all kinds of psychological medications, and just depressed, and all these different therapists and all these things that they're trying to do, and they have all this money and power, and they're so fucking miserable, right? And so then comes in Master Chargy's teaching, where he said that it's important to remember the lowest part of the higher is still higher than the highest part of the lower. And so the material life is the lower. And so you could be the most successful person. You could be a Trump. You could be whoever you think is the best person, the smartest person, the best person in terms of smart. Intelligence is something probably different, but in terms of material success, those people who are really killing it in the material world. But you could be a homeless person who is on the spiritual path, where you're connected to the divinity within you, and you're on the beginning stages. You're the lowest. I say homeless because that's the material thing, but you're just a person who's just taken your first couple steps on the spiritual path. But you're invested and you've made this commitment and you're starting on your spiritual path. You're still, even though you're a mediocre person, maybe even a poor person or a lower person economically, you're not successful, you're a failure or whatever, underachiever like me, whatever it might be. I mean, you're not killing it in the material world, but you're still higher than anybody in the material world who doesn't have a spirit on the spiritual path. Like there's a journey, and you're further ahead than the most successful people. And so at some point, the people who get success, they're supposed to realize that that's not it. But they get trapped in this ego. Their ego just, becomes so big and so, defensive, and so, it hijacks the soul's purpose, and then they just come back in life after life, looking for power, looking for this, just making the same mistakes over and over again. Then you have addicts, people who are addicts who, you have this thing where you get an aversion to alcohol, right? Aversion to gambling, where like this feeling of it makes you sick. They used to do this aversion therapy. One of the kids who was in my second treatment center, he was on my caseload. He had been in a number of treatment centers, and he was addicted to porn and had acted out sexually and with kids. I forget what his things were. And he went to this place and they did this aversion therapy. It's featured in the movie Clockwork Orange. You can see they take this guy and they prop your eyelids. They hold your eyelids and they put eye drops in. So, your eyelids, you can't close your eyes. And they show you these images. and they give you a drug to make you feel nauseous. And so whatever the images are, if it's sexual images or whatever it might be, and so that like when you see those images, or you go out in life and you experience these things, you get nauseous, and you feel not so. But there's real aversion that people get, like you get drunk on a certain alcohol, and you get so sick, and the next time you smell that alcohol, you never want it. Like that's the last time you'll ever drink tequila or whatever it is, right? And you're supposed to get an aversion. You're supposed to, like after having a bad life where your life is wrecked by your addictions and you die miserably, your soul's supposed to regroup and you come back and you're like, yeah, fuck that. I'm not doing that again. But people keep on doing it and then adding to it, adding to this samskaric burden of these impressions. And so this is, the simple aspect of why people are so fucked up and the world is so fucked up, because people aren't rising up to the next level. They're not seeing that, material life isn't, I mean, it's alluring, but at some point you go, all right, there's got to be something more. And that more is connecting to the divinity within you. And it should happen after a few lives. These short lives here are different. But it should happen, if you live a life of 1,000 years, it should happen in that life, right? Like, you have all these experiences, and then you're like, all right, I'm done with this. What do I have to do now? And you're getting older, and you start to focus on the divine wing, the spiritual wing. And so that's the simplicity of my channel here. Like, it's to show everybody what you already know, that the material life is fucked, and all these people that, rise up to high levels are fucked up, and they're, on every level. And they're clearly not the answer. The American dream is a lie, as all these materialistic dreams are, and that you have a spiritual purpose. And the evidence is overwhelming, and I present that in every one of my videos. Okay, so I just took a break. Me and my wife just had a conversation about some various things, but, just to wrap up what I was just saying, that's the point of this channel, right? To contrast this idea that you've been told your whole life that material success is why you're here. That's what you've been told. That's a lie. You're not here for material success. I mean, if that's part of your soul's plan, yeah. If that's part of what your soul wants you to do, if it's part of your life, but that's not the overall goal. Like your overall goal isn't to do with your material life. You're not supposed to climb Mount Everest. You're not supposed to, like you don't win if you climb Mount Everest. It's not winning. This is not like a video game in that sense, right? It's a video game, but not a video game where you beat the big boss and you win the game, right? How many times have you won a video game and you're like, wow, I don't feel good about it. Like I did that I played the original Mario, and you couldn't save the game. You couldn't stop and complete the thing. So, I started at like 8 o'clock at night, and it took me till like 2 in the morning to beat it. Like I was close to doing it, right? You had to, you had 3 guys, and you had to, whatever. Like I kind of barely remember it. And I remember going to bed going, holy shit, I feel horrible. I mean, I spent way too much time in front of the TV and electronic devices, and it was 2 in the morning, and, I should have been sleeping, and I woke up the next day. I was like, I had a hangover, and I'm like, and they did some things that, like, there was a little bit of a celebration video. I forget what it is. Whatever the thing was. I'll play that in the beginning of this. When I do my first clip, I'll pull that up right now. Okay, so I just looked at it, and you beat the dragon, and you rescue the princess, and it's so bad, the pixelization. It says, thank you, Mario. Like, there's not, I thought there was some kind of big explosion, even that, that was, I mean, it was, I remembered it better than it was, and it was nothing, right? Because, those things always leave you hollow, because they're not the real thing. They're not the real reason you're here. And so, whatever your specific samskaric pattern, these impressions that you have, the things that you're supposed to do, your job, your career, your marriage, your things in life, things that you're going to have. That's all there. And you're going to live that experience. It's pretty well scripted. And, there's going to be the good, the bad, and the ugly. And you enjoy the things you're supposed to enjoy, and you also enjoy the things that you're not supposed to enjoy, and you're grateful for all of it, and then you realize that it's helping you move to a spiritual, move up your spiritual ladder, move forward on your spiritual journey. So that's the point of this channel. And, it's a truth that people aren't told because almost everyone believes that material happiness is why you're here. That's even people who think they're religious or pretend to be religious, or they are religious and, that's what their religion is telling them because their religion sucks, which is really the main part. But you've been deceived. Like, everything that you've been told about life is wrong in terms of why you're here. You have a reason to be here, and it's a soul reason, and people have to figure that out. You have a role to play, and that's one thing. But then you have a soul purpose, like a soul-driven existence. The title of one of, my workbook that never got, off the ground. But anyways, so that's the point of this channel. And people who don't understand that, I don't need to spell it out every time. There's no agenda here because I'm very clear about it personally, and then, the rest of it. So that's the first part. So, I wanted to make fun of this comment more because I put it in the title of my video, and I wrote, I'm just glad that you're not my father. That's what I thought the person wrote because, it was late. And, I changed the title. It was going to be something else. But then I went back and read it, and the person said, well, here's the whole comment. I quit watching you a decade ago. You're just another zealot bigot. And creepy, too. I just thank my stars you're not my dad. And I'm like, I mean, it was better, to thank my stars because, it should be thank my lucky stars. So it's your stars that prevented me from being your dad? Like you were gonna be my son, but you were her daughter. I'm not sure I think it's a son. I think it's I think it's a he, him, but it could be a they, them, or it could be a she, her, who knows? But, you think of stars, like, the chances of you being my child would be, I mean, there's 8 billion people. Like, so, I mean, it's like, I don't think it's 1 in 4 billion. I don't know exactly how to calculate because it's how many kids you have, right? But it's, 1 in 3 billion. Like, I mean, it's one chance in 3 billion. Like, in terms of who your parents are. I mean, there's billions of sets of parents out there. And so, I mean, let's say it's 3 billion sets of parents. 2.5. I mean, the majority of people become parents, right? So, I don't know what percentage of people don't, but, it's like in the billions. And so you need stars, like your stars somehow prevented. Like, why would somebody even think that way? And again, I take these comments at face value. Like, they can be bots, they can be, I mean, complete bullshit. Like, it's, the person's just making shit up. But there's, an overwhelming theme, especially ones that are addressed personally to me. And that is that they want to, hurt my feelings in some way, right? And like this person's like, I wouldn't even want to be your son. Like, yeah, I thank your stars too, right? So, what I have to offer here is, I mean, it's based in my doing the Sajmark meditation, but like I, have had layers of this stuff that I've talked about cleaned out of my system and went through really difficult cleaning phases, emotional, physical illnesses, and, emotional, I mean, guess trauma or, relationship stuff, all the things. Disappointments, failure, just all the, all the things that kick you in the tits, So, I went through all that kind of stuff, and you do, and you have to, and my consciousness and my understanding of life and my, ability to see stuff, like it just, there's a, again, and I haven't reached the goal of human life, but I've moved forward. And because of that, I have insight to offer other people, right? People use the term enlightenment, but that's not a part of the Sajmark system. But you become enlightened to some extent if you just are on a spiritual path. And I've been, like I said, I've meditated for 20,000 hours, and, I've gone through the gauntlet of, spiritual journey, and I can see things and, in a clearer way than the majority of people. And I've been pulled up to a higher spiritual level than the average person, I mean, almost everybody, because people aren't on a spiritual path. the majority of people aren't on a spiritual path, and if they do, they don't have access to the transmission and cleaning that are in the Sajmark system. Like, it's unique, and um, the spiritual journey is always the same, and the extent that it's a simple journey. You connect to the divinity within you, and then there's a path that's laid out in front of you, and you follow the path. And when you come to choice points, you ask God and your soul, which, you know, you find a way to communicate with them, and you make the right decision. If you're on the spiritual path, you do what God wants you to do, and then you start to serve God in some way or another. And then, everything just sort of unfolds in front of you, and you feel good about the direction of your life for the first time, because you're going in the direction you're supposed to, and it's just that simple. It's not complex. It's just a matter of willingness, and putting the effort in and being effective. Like, not trying but doing. Not doing but becoming. Right. So it's like that. First you're trying, and then you're like, well, trying isn't working, so I'm going to do. And then you're like, well, doing is working a little bit, but there's another level, so I need to become. Right. And so you become something. You become, as Babaji said, I am what I ought to be. Right. You are what you were designed to be. You become what God wanted you to become. When God looked at your ultimate version of yourself, you become that, right? So that's what, the spiritual path is. So anyways, there's something that's offered here that you don't get other places. And, people don't want to hear it because they don't want to do it, right? They don't want to, people are stuck in their drama and they want to be there. And that's just, that's just whatever it is. All right. Let's move on to the other stuff here. Just so I wasn't clear, though, before we go, the Mario ending of Mario Brothers was so underwhelming. Like, I remembered it better than it was, and I remembered it sucking, right? And it's like an example of like things that let you down. Like, you think you'd feel better about. It's like an accomplishment, and it's not. And my wife was saying this about video game addiction. We were looking, my son was addicted to video games. I mean, I'm sure he still is to some extent. And they have this false sense. Some guy wrote about it. Some kid on my wife read it on Reddit. Some kid in his 20s, and he said, these kids all do things on the internet. Video games is a big part of it, and it feels like an accomplishment. They're accomplishing things in the cyber world, but it's not really. And so they're not even accomplishing things in the real world. And usually those things are, it feels good when you do it. You work hard, you achieve something. It feels good, but then there's got to be something more. You should feel this. Yeah, that's good, but there has to be something else. And that something else is finding out what your soul, why your soul chose for you to incarnate here, and what's your soul's goal for your life. And most people don't want to ask that question, and so that's why we have the world that we have. All right, let's get into the other stuff here. Actually, I forgot one thing. So one of the things I want to say about all these commenters, and going back to the part that I was talking about, everybody creates their own distorted version of reality. People can't let you believe what you believe, right? Let you say what your beliefs are. And that's like fucking the worst part of the internet. Because, I mean, I guess if there was, true feedback and people would give, real feedback, it would be positive. But that doesn't work. Like, people don't want to hear, when you question people's distorted version of reality, and depending on how crazy they are, how tightly they're wound, it doesn't work. Like, people, they'll feel vulnerable and hurt and feel like a victim, or any number of things, but they won't get it. They're not going to get like what you're trying to tell them. It just doesn't work that way. Because people don't like to be told they're delusional. Right? Like, it's like you're fucked in the head. Like, you have a distorted version of reality. But like, everyone should realize that. When you realize that yourself, then you can start fighting back against the distortion, right? And so, what I get from people here in terms of these negative comments, but it's something that plagues the whole internet, is people can't accept that you believe something different than they do. I mean, that's what all this bullshit is about on the internet. It's pretty fucked up. Because mostly it's about like, hey, you're delusional. Here, I'm delusional too, but I don't know it, so I'm going to tell you what I think the truth is. What I know to be the truth, but it's just, the fact that I'm fucked up too, right? Like, that's the internet. And it's because people are fucked up, and they, when they hear something that confronts their delusion, and they take it personally. They get butthurt, and they do these things. And it's, I mean, the beliefs that other people have. They might depress you. They might make you feel they're uninspiring, right? They're negative in a variety of ways because it shows you it takes away your hope for humanity. It takes away your ability to trust other people because they're all fucked up and they're people who are delusional. It doesn't matter whether they know they're lying or not. Their whole view of the world is a lie. Like their whole everything is distorted. I talked about this with my ex as time was winding down on our very dysfunctional relationship. She expressed to me her view of events that had happened in our lives, and they didn't happen that way. Like your memories get distorted over time, but like she was just it was like you watch a movie with somebody and they think the movie is a romantic comedy and you're like it's a horror movie. Like fucking when you go outside and it says you look at the poster and you look at how the movie's being billed, it's actually a horror movie, but the other person sees it as a romantic comedy. And you're like, how's that? And you both talk about the movie. It's like you watch two completely different movies. And like I knew that was, you can't be in a relationship with somebody who their version of reality, the way they see the world, is so different. And that's what's happening with people now with the political divide and everything. Group of people see Trump one way, and then one group of the family, some members of the family see Trump this way. Some people see him another way. Some people see him as in a more like balanced way, but like you can't get along with people who their experience of the same events that you're experiencing is completely different. Like they're having a completely different experience, and your two experiences can't be like melded together. Like they can't coexist, and that's what's happening with people. They're so locked into their distorted version of reality that they can't even accept that other people think differently than them because they can't confront their own bullshit, right? That's people can't confront their own bullshit. Anyways, all right. So I just want to add that part. Like it's a very telling thing when you see as many comments as I do, when you see how people are, and you see all the stuff I see on the internet. And like who gives a shit if other people like Erica Kirk, right? I mean, I don't respect them and I'll make fun of them, but they have the right to do it, and I'm not going to tell them to their face they're fucked because like what would be the value in that, right? I would hope that at some point they could see the truth about that and other things. But if people still like Trump, that's their business, right? Like that's their issues. It sucks for the rest of us to some extent, but really, what difference does it make? In the greater scheme of things, people are, you can't help them see the truth. You can't help people, see beyond their own bullshit, and because people are, their ego is constructed in such a way to, I mean, everybody's ego is constructed in such a way to not allow the truth to come in because the ego's hijacked your soul's journey, like your soul's, reason for being here, all these things. Your life has been hijacked by your ego. Like it's very clearly that's the case. So people who are working against that and trying to reclaim it and using their ego, like convincing their ego, your ego is able to see there's a higher purpose here. And like that's a hard thing for people to do. But once you do that, it becomes a positive thing. Like now your ego's helping instead of sabotaging. Anyway, sorry. So I just thought I'd add that. Let's get into the other stuff here. I forgot how annoying this music was. I mean, that's part of the problem. Like, I mean, I couldn't even play this game for 15 seconds. Thank you, Mario. You've rescued the princess. So, that's what's up. I thought I'd start with this anyway because I had it up. So I wasn't going to show it, but, I mean, this is what I, struggle with. It only takes a half hour. This video is 30 minutes long. But, it took me multiple tries to make it all the way to the end. And when I did, I was like, Jesus fucking Christ, that sucks. Right? This is worse than I thought. Like, All right. This is an amazing meme here. So, fuck. I saw this lesson. I wanted to lead with this. It's one of my favorite memes of the. And I, how I feel about memes. Memes are. I mean, if memes disappeared from the internet, I would have trouble. Like they're and all the sea of bullshit and things, and nonsensical bullshit. Memes are, very enjoyable. But you guys who know, this Charlie Brown, the Ayatollah is Lucy. He's going to pull the football, and Charlie Brown's going to swing and miss and fall on his ass. And this time he's going to kick the football, but she's going to pull it away from him. And it's going to cause him to fall on his fat ass. And, wonderful meme. The Nike shorts are a nice touch. All right. So that's Trump and the Ayatollah. Okay, I saw some of this yesterday. This is probably the funniest bit I've seen.
This grass will look so beautiful. If you remember, it had big sunken areas in here, and it was pretty bad. It was in bad shape. But this grass is...
Okay, so you mean they had some holes or divots in the in the lawn? Like, I mean, how much sunken was it? Was it like a 5 foot drop where somebody was going to break their ankle? Or was it like 1.5 foot little sunken areas? Or you're talking about hills, right? So Trump is so desperate to make it sound like this thing is great. I mean, he's spending your money. So this is him talking to you about the money he's spending that that you've contributed to his fucking project that only benefits elite people that are able to be a part of this thing, the so-called elites.
Highest quality. It was given free of charge by Scott's Miracle Grow. Scott's. And Scott's is a great company. They actually contributed to my campaign. I must be honest. You'll figure that one out. And they said to me, sir, we'd like to replace the grass at the White House with the highest quality grass and do a real job. So
you mean Scott's, this highest quality grass in the world? He plugs Scott's now for a lot. This isn't the end of it. He's going Miracle Grow. So the Scott's grass is something I wouldn't buy. I mean, anything that I would buy would be pasture grass, natural grass. And it would have a variety of different things in there for the cows or whatever it might be. And I mean, you can get better types of grass. But, in terms of having a lawn, I mean, I think Scott's is like the most GMO kind of, it just looks like it's shitty, right? It's just some kind of, GMO, Monsanto kind of, Satan kind of shit. And I don't know which is considered the best grass, because the most, like, the way that you would judge grass is this: any kind of seed, the amount of seeds that you're throwing down, what's the percentage that are going to germinate, and how is it going to hold up to drought or whatever you have in your particular area, right? Like, do you have a drought area, your kind of soil you have? Different types of grass do different, do better in different types of soil and all these other things. And so, but Trump knows none about that, right? I mean, he's been a builder. Scott's happened to donate to them, and they gave him some Miracle Grow. And they donated fucking grass seed, which isn't all that expensive, right? Like, that would be the least of our expenditures on this fucking, multi-billion-dollar project. He's pilfering our money to build. But, when you're taking from the collective, and like he's always trying to sell shit as being the best, you don't start with Scott's Miracle Grow.
Scott's, I want to thank Scott's Miracle Grow. It's I think the biggest grass company in the world.
And then this witch gets to laugh at him.
You cannot make it up. We are now either all living in the Truman Show or let's make a deal. I mean, this is crazy, Charlie.
Is it crazy? It's crazy, like fucking. Like, this is, I mean, everything's so fucked up. These people are fucking so ghoulish and shitty. Like, just across the board. I mean, it's just so bad. It's these abominations, right? Okay, so Stephanie Gould here.
I've been open for 6 minutes. Let's get down to business.
She used to be a banker. And they're just like, all right, I want to be on MSNBC. They're like, all right, sure, we'll give you a show. Right? She looks like one of the... There was, in James and the Giant Peach, there was Aunt Sponge and Aunt Spinster, Aunt Spinkster. There was a fat ant and a skinny ant that was like torturing this kid. Roald Dahl was a spy for Britain. but she reminds me of the one that was really skitty. Like that kind of, you know.
The yield on the 30-year U.S. Treasury bond has hit its highest level since 2007, as investors remained very worried about inflation and government borrowing. So what does it mean for the state of our economy? Joining me now to discuss this and more, Scott Lincecum.
Holy shit, bro. Why would you do this on purpose? Look at this guy. Look at these. I mean, look at these fucking people, man. Like, why is your hair like that, bro? Like, I don't understand. You're like an adult fucking, expert at something. And you're like...
Vice President of General Economics at the Cato Institute, and Greg Ip, the Wall Street Journal's chief economics...
God, Ip. Fucking get out of here, Ip.
...commentator and deputy economics...
Again, their hair. Like, what the fuck, right?
...editor. Okay, Greg, why is this happening, and what does it...
Look at these two bookshelves. Like, you got this fucking ghoul in the middle, and these two fucking depressed dweebs on either side with their weird haircuts. What the fuck's going on here?
...mean for the average American who is not focused on the bond market?
Okay, there's several reasons that long-term interest rates, which is what bond yields are going up. First of all, I think there were a lot of hopes that the Fed could cut interest rates this year, but inflation has been sticky, and with the war in Iran pushing up the price of
It's been pretty sticky.
Oil, nobody thinks that's going to happen. So that's one factor. Another is that
all right, we're fucked. I mean, these are all like Trump is mortgaging your future because this is what he was supposed to do. Like, I made a video, why would God save, the title of the video, why would God save this country or the world the way it is now? Why would God save it? Like, and only the most delusional people, no one had an answer for me. None of you guys, because, if you think about it, why would God save this? Why? Because we want him to? No, that fucking it doesn't mean shit, right? Like, it's when you're a parent and your kid really wants something, but it's bad for them, and they want to do something that's bad for them, and video games, whatever, they're addicted, some kind of thing. You're trying to free them from the thing that's, you can see it's causing them problems and pain. And sometimes you got to say no to kids, because they're going in the wrong direction. And, God would say no. Like, don't you see? This is killing you, the system. It's not killing you. It's, it's distorting your purpose, right? It's more than just your death. I mean, your death is going to happen inevitably, but like it's taking you to, a human, or an earthly hell. You're in hell right now. And it's going to affect you in the future. You're fucking yourself over in the future. The system is demonic. It's got to go, right? Of course it does. So Trump's aide, whatever her name is here.
Smart women who went to work for Donald Trump in the first term. I've never heard him defend you or Cassidy Hutchinson or any of the other women from that first term. What do you understand about his relationship with Natalie Hart?
I actually knew Natalie Hart during my time when I was working for the administration. And before I joined the first administration, I worked on Trump's 2020 reelect campaign for a year. And Natalie Hart was a campaign surrogate for us because she was a benefactor of Right to Try. And
Right to Try.
Remember her messaging me all the time, asking how she could be more helpful. And it was very obvious to me.
I'll do anything. I'll change his diaper. I'm willing to change his diaper.
That time that she wanted to be in the MAGA world and be in Trump's orbit. And obviously, over time, she has now risen the ranks to be one of his closest aides. She is someone who has the ear of the president. And as she's...
Holy shit. She has the ear of the president. This is crazy. She had that weird brother who said she's obsessed, which she is. And, these are the people he's around. And then these are the people that are talking about it, right? It's just, layers of just... it's layers of what the fuck, right? So I saw, I have a picture, I think, somewhere in I have a Monsanto folder, which is now owned by, is it Bayer Aspirin or Johnson Johnson, something like that. Monsanto was purchased, but they put out Roundup, which was Agent Orange, and, it's glyphosate, which is, shitty poison. But all these things are poisonous. And, it's easier. I mean, we had a poison ivy problem years and years ago, and this is before I knew any of this stuff. But I mean, I knew it was bad, but the area had to be cleared out. And it was me either digging up all the roots. I mean, it was a massive area of poison ivy. And, like now I would use vinegar. And but, you have to use vinegar over and over again, like, whatever. But, it fucking works. It makes your life easier, but like this poison, right? And there's a picture of somebody spraying a dandelion in their lawn with Monsanto's, Roundup. And, dandelions are great for your liver, and poison's bad for it, right? So it's like this, it's iron, it's ironical. Is that the right word? That they're killing your, something that grows. Dandelions only grow where you live, right? So it says here, the reason we hate dandelions is because of the 1950s marketing campaign to sell weed killers made in chemical weapons lab. Prior to the 50s, few people seemed to have a strong opinion about dandelions. European colonists brought them here on purpose. In the 1600s, the leaves were used for salads, the flowers for wine, and the roots roasted for a coffee substitute. Dandelions, I mean, you have these dandelions in Europe. They only grow where people live. But I used to love seeing dandelions. There was like fields, there's tobacco fields around there, and there's fields of grass where I grew up, and this just land that people had, and there was green. It was a green place in Connecticut. Lots of rainfall, and then there would be dandelions, and you'd have the red and you would have the green and the yellow, and it just was neat looking. I remember being stoned when I was a kid and just looking at the field, whatever. But they're neat looking, like they're beautiful flowers, and they're there for a purpose. They're very healthy. The leaves are great for your liver. It comes up in the spring. All the things are good. Dandelion root and leaves and things are used to help your liver, which is so important to you. But you have these marketing campaigns where they tell you something's bad, which it's not. Like dandelions in your yard. Why are you having flowers? Why is have a flower ever a bad thing, right? Like it's it's got a deep weed, but like why are you getting rid of something that's beneficial, But this is how marketing works. They were pretty much a home garden staple in the 1800s. The shift in thinking happened after World War II, after the Second World War, when 2,4-D, originally developed for chemical warfare research, was approved as a residential herbicide. Companies like Scott's, I didn't know this was coming. My wife sent me this. I've had this up for a number of days, but it's funny, I didn't read it because I was like, I'll wait to it. Companies like Scott's built a modern lawn care industry about the idea that a perfect green lawn meant zero weeds. Dandelions, being bright yellow, resistant to mowing, and tough to pull, became a visible enemy, and the campaign worked. By the 1970s. Dandelion-free was synonymous with well-kept lawn, the signature of the middle-class American dream. If you hate dandelions, it was likely due to the marketing campaign run before you were even born. There's Scott's weed killer with 4D. I mean, just a neat little flower, and again, so beneficial. So, we've had some issues with our neighbor spraying because of thistle. It's a whole fucking thing. She's got a horse farm, and she's been sold that that horses eat, which will avoid thistle, can get mouth sores. But the stuff that she's spraying is also like causes liver damage in horses, right? Like fucking, which all these chemicals do. If they're exposed to too much, which they will be if you can use it consistently. So it's a whole fucking thing, right? It's just when they want to sell you something, they make you scared of something, often something that's good for you. Weeds are so nutritious. My wife and I are eating lamb's quarters, also known as goose foot or something like that. And it's a plant. Years and years ago, my family went to this place to pick blueberries. And the guy had married an Indian woman. He had been to India. He was a New York guy living in Virginia. And he was a stock exchange, financial guy, and he made a bunch of money and retired to the country. And he bought this farm, and it had maybe 300 or so blueberry bushes. And you'd walk and you'd just pick your own. He charged like $1 something a pound or organic. It was an amazing place. And the guy is just building his dream house up there. and he was explaining the house, like he was like, really like to talk about his situation. He was saying, he couldn't grow spinach up there. Like he was on top of a hill and he couldn't grow spinach. He really wanted to grow spinach. And he brought some guy out who was, a forager. And the guy said, why are you trying to grow spinach? There's this incredible lamb's quarter that has 4 times the benefits of spinach, which is considered a superfood. These weeds that grow. And, these weeds grow, I mean, many of them are beneficial. People are trying to get rid of them and try to grow a garden, and the weeds actually have more nutritional benefit and things like that. Anyways, so that's my thing about this. So low energy, sleepy Darlene. Like if Trump was running against her, she'd be some version of Sleepy Joe, low energy Jeb, right? Which Trump is now himself.
Yeah, and to be fair, if people want to judge you on the South China Sea and Taiwan, okay, I think that's
okay.
fair.
You didn't know what Taiwan was, which like I'm not a politician, and I know a little bit about Taiwan and China. A lot of people do, right? Why the fuck wouldn't you know that? Like it wasn't some obscure country, like some Kyrgyzstan fucking thing like this. This is China and Taiwan, kind of known. China's America's biggest enemy. You know nothing about that, like, right? You dullard, like.
But I bet, based on all your time with your brother, that you know probably everything about the Middle East because he went on one trip after another to every country in the Middle East. And I know.
What were you doing while he was going on a trip? What fucking medication are you on, Darlene? Darlene, what fucking antidepressant bullshit are you on?
You know a lot about Europe and the Ukraine-Russia situation because he went to Ukraine more than any other.
Okay, that doesn't mean anything. Like, like if she didn't go with him and they didn't really talk about it, and she seems kind of, fucking stoned, right?
Senator, and you even said in our interview that you were going to focus more on domestic issues than your brother did. I mean, you were very clear.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I know national security is important. We have a wonderful commander-in-chief.
Do we, though? Like, do we? The war ain't going so great, Darlene.
I know that we need to stand with the Israel and...
We need to stand with the Israel. Israel. Your brother, you don't even say it like your brother used to say Israel.
I know that we need to stand with the Israel and the issues in Iran are serious. I understand all that. But again, I'm focused on the issues for everyday people in South Carolina that are struggling to make ends meet.
Yeah, the 3 billion people that live there. Half of them paycheck to paycheck.
So that's where I really want to focus. Another concern from the debate I have last night is my opponent said he was going to cut Social Security. That's very concerning to me. He also talked about creating a pathway for illegal immigrants. So that's another concern I have.
That's another concern I have. All right. Is she the Republican nominee or they're having a runoff? And then she's going to go against a Democrat? Like, I don't even know. Or is it a 3-way race? Who the fuck knows? Don't care. It doesn't matter. But she's not there. Like she's like not only just an NPC, but like she's some people are just not present in their bodies. They're just a whiff of like she's checked out, right? Look at this lifeless ghoul. Holy shit. Let's go back.
I think you're 100% right, Sean. And, I tripped up on one question last night regarding Taiwan. But, I've said many times, I'm not a politician, certainly not a career politician. I don't speak politician.
I don't speak politician. I speak Adderall, the Adderall. I speak the Adderall and the Israel.
I was just honest, and I think that's kind of a foreign concept. But I talked to several people today. I traveled around the state. Yeah,
it's one thing to say, I don't know the answer to that question, which is good. And certainly wasn't a Fetterman. It wasn't that bad. I mean, look, she wasn't prepped for years to be there was no thought that she would end up taking his job. Lindsey Graham died of a heart proliferation or something. I have the thing up there. And that's weird anyway. But like, she didn't know he was going to do this. And, Trump tapped her because he needed votes immediately. Like there were votes that had to be done and he needed this, it's that tight in the Senate. So, all that stuff. But, you should know what Taiwan and China's relationship is to America. Like, that's like something you should know, right? Like, that means that there's probably a lot of stuff you don't know. And you're sleepy or low energy, and Lindsey Graham was a piece of shit. What Lindsey Graham had going for him was seniority. He was a known entity, and he had power, and he was in charge of committees and shit. She's not going to inherit all that stuff. She has to work her way up as a freshman senator. So, like, you know, I mean, you're not a politician, and you seem like you're on fucking Adderall or some shit. Melatonin, I don't know.
And they said, you know, we appreciated the fact that you were honest. And I did say several times that, you know, China is our enemy, our military and economic threat to the United States. Of course, Taiwan is our friend. But I think people in South Carolina are more worried about making ends meet.
Making ends meet and taking that Adderall and, you know, all that kind of stuff. The Israel. And, you know, two words I do know is the Israel. Look at these fucking dopes here. All right. The hits keep on coming.
Mr. President, earlier today you said North Korea has something like 57 nuclear weapons. They've been expanding their nuclear program. Is your goal in trying to re-engage with Chairman Kim still denuclearization? And what makes you think you could be successful now when you weren't?
Well, I don't want to talk about that, but I do have a good relationship with Kim Jong-un. As you know, you've seen.
He said denuclearization, so he wants to, you know, before they're trying to, you know, I don't know, get rid of North Korea's nuclear weapons, but you have to, you know, that means America's, whatever, draw down, I don't know. But he's like, fuck that, we're not doing that now, fuck it, that ship has sailed.
He didn't like Biden, he didn't like Obama, he didn't like anybody, but he likes me, and I like, I just got along.
He likes Kim. Kim likes me. I like Kim.
With him very good. We had great meetings. We speak.
Kim and me, we like to speak.
And I think our nation and I think other nations,
Kim Jong,
frankly, whether it's Japan or South Korea, they're a lot safer if I'm president than if somebody else is president. Now, I didn't like the fact that we're doing these massive military exercises really against North Korea. It was an exercise against North Korea. When I'm friendly with him, when we have, I don't see anything happening for certainly 2.5 years. It's not going to happen with me.
And fuck the world after that, right? 2.5 years and then fuck the world. 1999.
But
party like it's Trump's no longer president.
I don't see anything happening. And I was not happy when South Korea said, no, they're not interested in helping us with the Hormuz.
Are those the Van Winkle brothers? Those guys who were Facebook? Is that what?
Right. And yet they get 60% of their oil from the Hormuz Strait. I said, would you like to help us? He said, no, thank you. I said, that's nice, please, thank you. He made us a lot of money. I didn't like that. So I felt that we were doing a massive war exercise.
I didn't feel like doing that. That guy wasn't nice to me. He wasn't helping me with Iran. Kim Jong is really nice to me. He likes me. I like him. I don't know. Maybe we should be allies with North Korea against South Korea. I don't know. I'm just floating that idea out there. Is there anything out there that I can claim for territory? Is there something there we want strategically? Maybe I'll just take a chunk out of the demilitarized zone. Right? So, the bonds are supposed to be secure. Like, the bonds are supposed to be safe, right? There's volatility in the bonds market. That means that there's, America's seen as unstable, right? And America isn't a safe bet. And so...
Even despite the fact of what's happening with interest rates.
Should Americans be concerned about this volatility in the bond market?
No, I don't think so, because like I said, our country is doing so well despite interest rates. We have...
Yeah, so the answer is always yes. But with Trump, it's always no. Should you be concerned about, your hair's on fire and it looks like your diaper's leaking? I don't think so. I got the greatest diaper in the world. My hair is, my hair is blazing.
Interest rates that are they're actually artificially high. They raise them for no reason.
For no reason. People are selling off American bonds, right? People are losing faith in the American government. That's the reason. I mean, the interest rates are there because the economy's fucking really unstable right now. They're trying to do everything to keep it from going over a cliff. And then once people lose faith in the economy and lose faith in America, when people question, America, and I mean globally, but also Americans, which is, starting to happen. When people are already kind of like the apocalypse might be upon us, like people realize it might be over. People are concerned about that shit, and then the war with Iran's not helping. For him to say, they just, here.
They raise them for no reason.
They raise them for no reason. For no reason they raise them. They raise them for no reason. Like, fuck, what are you talking about, right? Because the reality is, like, he's somebody who he bows to the financial markets. He bows to the Wall Street. He bows to the banks, right? These are the people that are Trump's people. These are the people he really works for. Israel, like all these people, these various groups. Every president has groups of power that back them. They're owned by something, right? Somebody. Like, they should wear patches like NASCAR on their suits to show you who they're owned by. And Trump thinks about money. He's a money person, a business person. So, the bonds going down is a fucking reason to be concerned. But Trump would never say that, right?
And you can't go out to the market when you have a Fed that's raising interest. You can't say, I want to pay 3 points less than what the Fed says you're supposed to be paying. So, no, I don't think so at all. I think we have a very powerful country, and we're powering through these ridiculous interest rates. They're ridiculous.
They're ridiculous. They're ridiculous, these things. They're fucking ridiculous. He's talking about the Federal Reserve, right? Which is, the Federal Reserve is the ultimate in financial power. Anyways, I don't know who this guy is, but he's a pastor.
The patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, are all Jewish people. The prophets, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Daniel, Hosea, Joel, Amos, Haggai, Zechariah, Malachi, all Jews, not a Baptist in the bunch.
Not a Baptist in the bunch. Yeah, there weren't any Baptists. Like, there were... Are you retarded? Like, you retarded? There weren't any millennials either. Where are all the millennials? Where are Generation Zs? There wasn't one Generation Z amongst any of these people in the Bible. What the fuck are you talking about? There had to be a religion created by, the post-Jesus death situation to create, inevitability of the breaking up of the Catholic Church, and then these fragmented different churches, including the Baptist, these different sects of churches. And that would be years later. Like, of course there's no Baptist in the Bible. There was...
The first family of Christianity, Mary, Joseph, and Jesus, Jewish. Jesus kept the law of Moses. Jesus said, do not think that I've come to destroy the law, but to fulfill the law. He celebrated his bar mitzvah at the age of 13. He wore a prayer shawl from that day until the day he died. He was buried in that prayer shawl. He's going to return to the earth in the second coming as a Jew. How do you know that? Because the book of Revelation says, behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah. Judah is the root word for the word Jew. Jesus Christ is coming back, a Jewish rabbi.
Like Judas?
He's going to rule and reign over this earth, and God bless his holy name. It's going to happen.
It's going to happen. So you believe in reincarnation then, right? He's going to come back. Maybe he's Rabbi Shmuley. Maybe Jesus came back as Rabbi Shmuley. Maybe that's Jesus. He could be, right, if that's what's happening. And you believe in reincarnation, right? One of the great teachings of the Sajmark system, brilliant, is that Jesus wasn't a Christian and Buddha wasn't a Buddhist. Meaning that Jesus was born a Jew, but he became something else. Buddha was born a Hindu and he became something else. That you're born in a religion. Another great quote is from Swami Vivekananda, a great Indian saint, who said, religion's a great thing to be born in, but a horrible thing to die in. Meaning that, you're born in a religion, and that's great because you learn about God and basic, when you're a kid, when you're a child, religion's for children. But then you graduate to being a spiritual person where you have a direct relationship with God. And not that you disrespect the religion in the sense that you are grateful for what it is, a kindergarten, but you graduate kindergarten, just because you're getting your master's degree or doctorate or something, or getting your college degree, you don't shit on kindergarten, right? Like you've just outgrown it, right? And so everybody should graduate religion. Like Jesus left his religion behind and became a spiritual person, which is something that everybody can do. And that's the problem. Like, you've been told, oh, that's only for special people. And it's too hard for you. You're like, yeah, great. I don't want to do that anyway. I don't want to be, that into God, right? People don't want to, they want to have their own selfish lives. And so that's, 100% the issue. And this is just weird. These guys. I mean, here's Laura Trump, who looks, she's got like arms now, but like lanky arms. She looks totally dudeish. She's all kinds of work on her face. Of course, Caroline Levitt, too. Younger women who are getting tons of plastic surgery at a young age. And that just, you don't stop there. But look at these fucking inhuman freaking ghouls coming through here, especially Laura Trump. I mean, Caroline Levitt. Here, let's look at that fucking, who's this dude right here? Look at this fucking alien dude motherfucker. Boom, peace out. I don't even know who that last one is. Just fucking not cool. Okay, so this is a Chinese news network. They have a cartoon very much like a Iranian cartoon. This is supposed to be America. Guys buying a bunch of weapons, military shit, a book here, some fucking drugs, loaf of bread, and a bridge. Eagle dollars to be paid.
Put it on the card. Everybody takes it. What? I haven't even hit the limit.
There's a payment due, and the interest is piling up.
The interest piling up. Like they're slamming American debt here.
You've got quite a situation here.
Easy. Hello?
It's like Alec Baldwin's voice here.
It's me again. Fancy another round of investment? It's risk-free. For me.
So,
See?
Wait, you just borrowed new money to pay the old bill?
We call that refinancing.
How are you still getting loans? Shouldn't your financial situation have gotten you blacklisted by now?
Well, everyone needs my dollars, and my IOs happen to be denominated in my dollars. Convenient, huh?
Convenient.
You're getting close to the debt ceiling. Maybe you could put something back?
Are you crazy? These are urgently needed.
I know what your priorities are now.
And if I hit the ceiling, I'll just move the ceiling, like I always do.
Who's gonna handle the debt finally?
Relax. Just kick the can down the road. Future Eagles will handle it.
Boom. So, that ain't good. I mean, the fucking, the ship be sinking. Self-explanatory.
We fucked you, America!
That's right, we did!
And we'll do it again! We fucked you, America!
That's right, we did!
And we'll do it again!
They'll do it again. All right, you're not going to get fucked once by these guys. The Mount Rushmore here. This AI is not as good, but you know who they are. Jeffrey, Donald, Miriam, and Bibi. Okay, so this is from some movie, obviously, maybe Interstellar or one of those. Don't care, don't tell me, don't need to know. And this is Andrew Wilson, who's now getting regularly mocked, which I think he's happy about because nobody knew his name 3 days ago.
Everyone assumes a bullet travels from point A to point B.
Because it does.
That's a very three-dimensional way of looking at it. But what if the bullet doesn't travel across space? What if it travels through it?
Okay. But where's the bullet?
Exactly.
Exactly what?
It disappeared midair. Extremely common.
Extremely common. The bullets just disappear.
Next time you hear my voice, I'll be on the other side of space.
What day?
Saturday.
Then you won't hear mine. It'll be Shabbat.
Shabbat shalom, Daddy's home. Okay, so the pickle, apparently he was on a podcast. He's got a pickle there, and then a pickle on the door. The pickle was some liberal woman gave him a jar of pickles because he was trying to be a manly conservative, and he couldn't open it. And then Candace Owens mocked him with some kind of pickle thing. And so...
Mission log. Bullets disappear in midair more often than people realize. The question isn't whether it happens. The question is, where do they go? I'm here to find out.
No. No, 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 no. Don't go. Don't go! Andrew! Don't go to the debate! Rachel! Rachel! Don't let me leave! Please! Don't let me leave, Rachel! You don't know the charges! Stay home! Rachel, stop me! No, no, no! Wait! Rachel, don't let me go, please! You're gonna say positive evidence 47 times! Don't go! Don't go! Don't go! Rachel.
Okay, very, kind of great. You know, Trump does this quite often. You know, just in case you didn't think he's ever sucked dick before. All right, so this is 2016 Trump running for president.
Because we really do have to get going. Because if we have another 3 or 4 years, you know, we're at 18 trillion now. We're soon going to be at 20 trillion. According to the economists, who I'm not big believers in, but nevertheless, this is what they're saying, that 24 trillion, we're very close. That's the point of no return. $24 trillion. We will be there soon. That's when we become Greece. That's when we become a country that's unsalvageable. And we're going to be there very soon.
Yeah. And so now it's at 40 trillion, right? So, you know, it's almost double that. It's double from when he was talking, you know, so he was, you know, they added, I mean, 12 trillion just went from the bailouts from Trump and Biden. But, you know, it went over 24 trillion in his term, and it kept on going, and now it's up to 40 trillion. And so it's added at least 3 trillion a year. So that's crazy. And there's just $1 trillion of interest. I mean, it's, you know, it is unsalvageable. You know, I mean, it's like you hear these numbers, and I show you the debt clock, which I won't do today, but every once in a while I roll that out. Like, there's no way to fix the debt. There's no way to reverse that, right? You can create incredible inflation, you know, monstrous inflation where 40 trillion is nothing, right? Like, you can devalue the dollar so you can pay off, you know, everybody can pay off their loans, right? When your house goes up to, your house would be worth $7 million, but, you know, you'll have to buy a loaf of bread for $100, right? That kind of inflation, where you devalue the currency, which, you know, as soon as America isn't, you know, there isn't a petrodollar and isn't the world's reserve currency, it's going to get devalued. And as soon as that happens, you know, you're going to see that kind of inflation, and then just lots of things to go with it. I mean, you know, we're on our way out in terms of being an empire. I mean, that's if nothing big happens, like if just, you know, things just sort of keep on leaking until, like, you know, we're a sieve. So, you know, there's that. And this is why, you know, when people say you're black-pilled, I mean, it's silly. $40 trillion in debt is way past the point of no return. The point of no return wasn't 24. You know, it was probably 15 or whatever. I mean, there was, you know, the point of no return is when it wasn't even conceivable we'd pay back on the debt, that we'd be running a surplus, right? When you spend above your means, you know, whenever they just said, all right, every year we'll just add to the debt. We'll just add to it. We'll spend more money than we have. Like, you can't do that as an individual, a person, a company, and as a, you know, a country, certainly. You can't do that. Like, you can do that maybe 1 or 2 years, and then you have to get, you know, fiscally responsible. And that just hasn't happened. Takes on China politicians. Obamacare adds, I'm really rich. Donald Trump, I'm running for president, right? All right, so this is going to be great.
But above all,
It is not diplomatic, it is not economic, it is not political, and it is not even military. And Israel has an amazing military.
Yeah, because we paid for it. What are you talking about? If whatever we didn't pay for it, secrets they stole, like nuclear secrets and other shit. Of course they have amazing we have amazing military.
It is astonishing that a tiny little country of 10 million people outpunches its weight over and over again when it is threatened with its existence by those who have 10 times the population, many more times the military budget, and yet...
Yeah, because they being they have America, right? They got my bodyguard.
It doesn't just survive, it thrives. So is that what the secret is? And I would say to you, no, it's none of that. The secret is that 3,800 years ago, God told Abraham, I'm going to create a people, and you're it. And I'm going to put you in a place, and this is it.
And then you're going to leave this place multiple times and try to come back. And then you're going to, but, all right, here, let's.
And this is going to be your place, and I'm going to give you a purpose, and you're going to fulfill it. And it doesn't matter who rises up against the children of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And it does not matter how dark sometimes the night may get, because as it says in the Psalms, joy comes in the morning. And we are living in a land that is able to exceed what it should be able to do, whether it's the military, the economy, diplomacy, agriculture.
Yeah, there's a manipulation involved. There's a system of grifting and manipulation, and I mean, it's not fucking like this isn't miracles.
Technology, and the reason is none of those things. The reason is because God Almighty put his hand on the land, and because God himself has said, this is how you will know that I am God. And I believe we see it from the Bible.
So we say that these people are more superior. The issue here is, again, the Old Testament's bullshit, and the way they present God, I've talked about this so much. And it's just because you say God says something doesn't make it true, right? Oh, God said that. Anybody can say, oh, this is what God said. You go in any court situation after you did a crime and say, God said to do it, right? And nobody believes that shit. So, but for this particular group of people, that's been sold back and forth, right? But Jewish people are not a genetic line, right? There's lots of different genetics because people convert to Judaism. And the moment you convert to Judaism doesn't mean you are now a part of God's chosen people. Like that would have to be a genetic line. Like he's talking about there's these people there that were in Israel, but some of them were Arabs and they chose a different path. I mean, they're all Arabs, right? Like they were all the same genetics. But now you have all these various genetics, the Ashkenazi genetics, the Russian Jews, the African Jews. There's there's different peoples of different genetics and races and intermarrying and conversion to the religion. So like none of that makes sense. It's silly. God doesn't choose a people. It's fucking stupid, right? People choose God. God's always choosing you. God's choosing everybody. Like everybody's chosen by God. Well, are you going to choose? Okay, so I want to revisit this because I covered this yesterday. And I didn't know what I was getting into, and it popped back up on my Twitter feed. Okay, so Rabbi Shmuley is not considered a undesirable, unwanted person, an extremist. Like he isn't one of the Proud Boys or one of Antifa, somebody who's, in terms of Israel, he isn't considered a guy. And in America, he's somebody who, is considered, RFK Jr. went and licked his taint. Remember, RFK Jr. said Ashkenazi Jews weren't as susceptible to COVID. And he was implying like it was some kind of biological weapon that was designed to wipe out other people, Goy, get rid of the Goy, right? And other Jews because, it's a specific bloodline, right? They're from the Caucasus area, the Russian mountains, the Ashkenazi, the Khazarians. But when he said that, they grilled him I mean, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, but all of them grilled on him being anti-Semitic. So we had to go and talk about like how, I mean, he's even kind of worse than Huckabee in terms of an Israeli taint licker. And he talked about how much his dad loved Israel and how he talked about how great the Israelis were, all this stuff. And this guy, Shmuley, was the guy he did it with. This guy, Shmuley, is considered a person that has a voice, not an extremist, right? Not a, crazy guy, not a, person. I mean, I'm sure within Israel, the liberals don't like him. There's opposition in Israel, but, he is somebody who's celebrated, right? He's not as loud a mouth as he is, as a clown he is. I mean, he isn't even considered a Trump-like person, right? And so here.
The Jewish people have to be feared. Hamas has to fear the IDF. Hezbollah and disgusting, poisonous, reptilian Iran.
Calling the Iranian people reptilian, like this is poisonous, disgusting Iran. This is, I mean, talking about that. Like, America wrecked Iran years and years ago. The reason they have the government they have now is because of America. And America, I mean, everything America did was on the behalf of Israel. Like, I mean, it's grown over the years, but Israel was never not part of that equation and this, whatever it is. But think about the hate speech. This is hate speech. If somebody bumps him or criticizes Israel, he calls them anti-Semitic. But he's calling, Iran reptilian and, the hate speech. They hate Palestinians. They're lesser than, it's okay to talk about Goy that way. But God forbid you say anything about Israel, right? And this guy, like, he's just seething with hate and just arrogance and, all these things.
Has to fear the Mossad. Just think about this for a moment. When Israel goes in the heart of Tehran and kills Ismail Haniyeh, and I feel really bad for him, because if I had $4 billion, I wish I could have lived longer and bought more hot tubs and more, Gulfstream 6s and all.
And kosher dildos from his daughter. I did that joke yesterday. I was trying to not do it, but I couldn't stop.
All that wasted money now, which his children are now suing Erdogan for. When you do that in the heart of Tehran, what do you think Khamenei himself is thinking? He's thinking, uh-oh, I'm next. These Jews actually fight back. The same thing is true in media. Why aren't we going after the Candace Owens of the world, the most disgusting reptilian anti-Semite in America?
We're calling Candace Owens reptilian reptilian isn't a choice, right? It would be, you have reptilian DNA, calling them a reptilian isn't just because you choose to be and again, calling her an anti-Semite and to go after him. But him talking about, it cut off the beginning. I had the longer version yesterday. He talked about how Jews always try to be loved, but now we need to be feared. So he gets into this whole thing of, that was the beginning of it. But he's talking about how they should fear us, right? And there's two things with this that I want to add. Number one, you can't talk like that. I mean, that's, imagine if, Trump kind of talks like that and gets a lot of pushback from even, certainly from the left media, but, people in the truth community. But you can't talk like this, number one. And two, the arrogance. Like, they're walking with such a swagger here. They got, America, they know they got America locked up. And, this whole thing. And Trump. And so they just, but whenever you get this arrogant, you get taken down. Like, whenever you just feel in yourself this much, you come and you start saying things like this. And, this is a message that's reverberating, here in America and then there as well. I mean, the stuff just openly threatening American journalists, prominent American citizens, when you're supposed to be an American, right? I mean, what is he? He's got dual citizenship, I'm sure.
Why aren't we going after Roger Waters? Why aren't we going after Tucker Carlson? President Trump, who spoke here at the IAC the other day, is the most pro-Israel president in American history. What the heck is he doing with Tucker Carlson in his ear? Tucker Carlson's a Holocaust denier. Tucker Carlson just had a historian on, 42 million people watched it, who said the Holocaust, he's not a Holocaust denier. He admits that 6 million Jews died, but it wasn't a program of genocide. They were like prisoners of war. They died of disease. Cut the crap and stop desecrating the memory of our 6 million.
Our 6 million. Our 6 million. Right?
And no American president, whether it's Biden or George Bush or greatest president for Israel, Trump, should be having people like that. And we have to go after the Tucker Carlsons of this world. I am tired of being a scared Jew. I am tired of quaking and shivering and trembling before our enemies. We are going to bring the fight to our enemies.
So he wants, people to fear them. And so when you talk like this, let me go switch over to voiceover here. All right, so going back to that comment, I'm going to get to the stuff with Israel, and for those listening to Journey series, Rabbi Shmuley was saying he wants everyone to fear Jews. Like, he wants the world to quake and fear Jews, and he wants to go after people like Tucker Carlson, and was talking with, basically saying things that were, I don't want to say racist, but like, hate speech. Hate speech against Roger Waters from Pink Floyd, hate speech against Tucker and Candace, and then Iran calling them reptilian and these things. And, talking about he wants them to fear, and then Mike Huckabee basically saying that Jewish people are a superior race. And so before I get to that, there was one kind of joke. I was doing this long voiceover, and I'm happy in the direction it took, but I missed out on some of the things I wanted to say about this one comment, which will segue into this other stuff, right? The person says, I quit watching you a decade ago. You're just another zealot, bigot, and creepy too. I just thank my stars you're not my dad. I don't like normal. I'm not a normal person. I don't feel like everyone should try to act, you have to fit in. You don't want to be somebody. I mean, in the Sajmarg meditation, Master Charji would dress in whatever clothes that the people of that country wore. Like, he had, different kinds of outfits and things, but like he was in India, he'd wear Indian clothes, which are quite significantly different. And then maybe if he was at the ashram, where they wouldn't be going out in public, but when he was in the airport and he was walking around town, going shopping, or, if he went sightseeing, he was outside in America or some other country, he wore the clothes that were there. In fact, some guy gave a speech, an American guy who was just a complete idiot. The guy was known for doing idiot things, and then apologizing for it, and everyone said how great he was to apologize, but, he was just a moron because he kept on doing the same thing over and over again. And the guy was talking about how that people shouldn't wear jeans. And there's some, they're very conservative culture, India. They don't wear shorts, which, I went along with, and I wouldn't go along with it now if I had to redo it. Because fuck that, you know what I mean? Like, they would, you weren't supposed to point your feet at people because that's an insult to the Indian culture. But the Sajmark system's about getting rid of all those types of things. Cultural traditions, rituals. It's a new paradigm. It's a new, spiritually based, effective based, not the mantras and the spiritual rituals and things. And, like they would read something and they use their middle finger to point at the chalkboard, whatever, because they don't see the middle finger as the same thing. They probably do now because they're getting westernized. But what I'm saying is, like, it's good to be conservative. It's good to respect other people's culture, but sometimes you just don't. But this clown got up and said that nobody should wear jeans, and everyone started to laugh at him because sitting right behind him was Master Charji in jeans, right? So, in the Sajmark system, you just try to fit in. Like, you don't try to, the people who are preceptors don't wear special robes. There's no way to try to elevate people, indicate they're somehow a part of a priest class or something. You just be a normal person. You dress like everybody else. You can have some, you can have your style or whatever, but like, you're not there to be a look at me person, right? But, I don't mind when people are different. I'm different. Like, I don't feel like everyone should try to fit in, and maybe not in a superficial way. And I don't mind weird and crazy, but you don't lead with weird. Like this person who said, I think my stars, you're not my dad, right? Like, that's fucking weird. And like, you don't lead with weird. You show that you can control your weird and you can act normal and you can act acceptable when you first meet people. And then you can act weird. Like, you don't lead with weird. You don't and you see this quite often. Nobody knows you, right? You're writing a short comment. It should be something within the framework of safe behaviors. Like, you're showing that you're not, some fucking nut job, right? Like when you meet people, you have to at least show them, that you can control your weird. Then you let your weird come out, right? When you get comfortable, like, and you can say, all right, this is who I really am. I mean, not in a way that you're deceiving people, but, like you want to make sure, like, you can start talking about it, in the beginning, but you don't shock people, right? Like, even people who are not, like I'm not, thinking that normal behavior is normal behavior or positive behavior. Before we get to Rabbi Shmuley, I saw there was a Candace Owens video, and she said she has another shocking video about that guy, I can't remember his name. Don't tell me, don't care, don't need to know. He's a guy who said that, Charlie was dead, and he decided to do a reaction video to Charlie Kirk being shot, and he grabbed a camera, and now there's a video of him doing something on a computer, like minutes after he's done the selfie video. And Candace Owens has this video, and she calls it incriminating stuff or some shocking video against TPUSK. But when she was debating this guy, Andrew, whatever the fuck his name is, she didn't have proof that TPUSA and Erica Kirk did it, right? And Israel. Because there is none, and you're not going to have it, and proof only comes from the government. The official story is controlled by the government. And, anybody who thinks when you're doing what we're doing here that you're going to change the official story, it never happens. Like, small ways, but not in any real way. And the official story has to be a deception because the system's collapsing. They can't tell you, when you're watching a disaster movie and they come out and say, no, there's no asteroid. When they gaslight the actors, the fake president and the media, or the fake president and the government come out and lie to people about the disasters because they don't want to create widespread panic, and people will fucking panic. Like, people fucking suck and they can't control themselves, and they'll run around like fucking chickens with their heads cut off. I mean, people will lose their shit. And, we saw what happened with COVID. I mean, it wasn't even a real thing yet. And they were already, like, the fucking grocery store was cleaned out. There wasn't a roll of toilet paper within, 200 miles offshore. I mean, like, everything was cleared out. These stores, every canned good, which is good, but people should have that shit stored up already. It's just like not a, whatever you think you're going to need, you should be storing, like, especially after seeing what happened at COVID. That's a great thing about the Mormons. They're supposed to have 3 months worth of food, years worth of food, at least, the potential to have enough food to keep you going. Anyway, so that's neither here nor there. But, it isn't my job sitting in my bed, like half laying down, talking, barely holding my microphone. I'm completely laid out here. It isn't my job to solve fucking murders and shit. It's like, isn't my job to, with my laptop here and my mouse and my fucking, minimal investment in my equipment here, microphone. It isn't my job to solve the fucking Charlie Kirk murder case. It isn't my job to do any of those things. Candace Owens pretends it's her job, but it isn't. Even if she was a real journalist, you could say maybe, a little bit she is, other than the bullshit she does, like Mitch Snow. Like, even if, she was a real journalist, journalists don't solve fucking murders. I mean, very rarely that happens. The police are supposed to do that job, and when they don't, then there's nobody doing it, right? Like, even if you solve the mystery, you're Scooby-Doo motherfuckers, you still have to get the cops to buy into your solution. And they may or may not do it, like corrupt cops and, fucking the powers that be. And they're never going to solve something in a way that's going to take down the system. Like, they're supposed to lie to you if they think that, it's going to create widespread panic, and it would. And everybody who's like, oh, I want the government to tell me the truth. Well, if they told you the truth, you'd be fucking fighting rats for, moldy bread crusts in a dumpster somewhere. And that before you start eating your neighbors, right? I mean, like, things can go fucking south quickly. And you're going to be like, I wish they kept on lying to us. Like, if a good, honest person was elected president and just came out and said the truth, first they destroy the guy and pretend he was crazy or whatever. I mean, they would negate his truth. But let's say the whole government just told the truth, and people were like, oh my God, it's way worse than I thought. And then fucking, if they told the truth, they'd say, oh yeah, our system's dead. We're insolvent, we're bankrupt, we're broke. And it would send ripples across the whole world. Like, if they were going to be honest, that's what they say. They can't say that, and they shouldn't say that. It's a demonic system, and their job is to keep it going in any way, shape, or form, even if they have to go into the dark arts and do evil. That's what they do. And, I'm not saying they should do that, but that's what they should do. It's not right that they're doing that, but it's based in your job. If you were in that position, that's what you should do, even if you want to be a good, honest person, right? Now, we can talk shit as long as we don't influence the system. We can tell the truth, right? We can tell the truth, especially like my small channel here. The bigger the channel, the less truth that you can tell. It's not even responsible for you to tell the truth if you're going to create, some kind of a real crisis. But you won't create a crisis because people, even when they hear the worst possible truth, they're so, brain dead and NPC that they can't possibly do anything about it. And they shouldn't do anything about it because, they're not qualified to do that shit. And so when anybody says, hey, can you show me the proof? They say it to me. I'm like, I'm not here to prove something to you, dumb fuck. I've been right about freaking everything and, the big things because of, my connection to the divine and just, whatever. But it's basically guesswork. I'm not a facts person, but, even in all that, when I say the things that I say here, and people who've listened to me for years go like, this guy's always right. They're still not going to do anything differently, because people can't do anything differently. People are pretty much locked into their lives, and, and most people are just going to go over the cliff with the rest of the fucking system. The few people that are able to survive this epic change that's going to come and adapt, and mostly it's going to be young people. Like old people are just like, fuck this. They won't commit suicide, but they'll just check out and, get hit by a bus or, you'll get fucking, some new version of COVID or something, whatever it might be. But they'll just find ways to check out. People just like quit on life, and you see it, and they're just, they're already dead, and they're just waiting for their body to stop working. And there are a lot of people like that now, and so that's just the way it's going to go. But there are things that each one of us can do, and we have to figure that out personally with this information. You now have access to information where you're more responsible. Like that the systems can't be fixed, or at least you're considering the idea that it can't be fixed and that it might collapse and that you need to do something differently, and what are you going to do? Like, what are you going to do now with the time between now and when the shit starts hitting the fan? The shit's already hitting the fan, but, in a much more graphic way. When it really starts to go, like, what are you going to do? Like, how are you going to prepare for that? And each person has to kind of ask themselves that question. I have access to inside information. I've said this before. You have access to inside information. I'm just remembering I said this before somewhere. So what are you going to do with that information? And the spirituality thing to me is the most important. But then going to Mike Huckabee and this guy, Rabbi Shmuley, Israel there's just a sense of self-destructive element to the Israeli system and country, and then the people there. Like, there's a self-hatred there. There's there's just a and when you start swaggering and you start coming right out and saying these people are like Mike Huckabee saying these people are God's chosen people. Like, what the fuck, right? You're a fucking Christian. You fucking what are you talking about? The Bible sucks. Like, it's a fucking remedial book, and that ain't God's book, bro. So, and then Rabbi Shmuley coming out and saying, I want everyone to fear the Jews. Like, we want to make people tremble in fear, and, that we're going to go after them. And so, when you start talking like that openly, and you're a small country and like America's turning on you, it shows that you don't believe that American people can do anything about which is true. No matter how much truth you guys and everybody has, the people in the truth community and everyone else, and how many people wake up to whatever's going on, there's no leverage anymore. I say this all the time, and they know it. But the leverage is, arrogance will always get you fucked. Like, whenever you get arrogant, you start swaggering, you start feeling yourself. Immediately, there's going to be a correction. It's like you see it all the fucking time, and that's coming not only because of Trump, because the Trump's arrogance and his people. There's an absolute ass kicking coming for America and Israel. A brutal ass kicking, and we're going to be there along for the ride. All right, so let me I still got all day tomorrow to deal with this stuff. I'll stop this for now, and then I'll wrap this video up tomorrow. Okay, so it's the end of the day on Thursday. I just want to put this in here. I want to put this picture in my, my collage of thumbnail. I got a bunch of other stuff to get to for tomorrow. Still lots of good stuff to go with this video. Just every day. There'll be even more stuff tomorrow. I don't even know how long this video is going to be. But, memes are just great, especially with the AI now. It adds another layer.
1 year ago this summer, I signed landmark legislation known as the Genius Act. I named it after myself. I didn't want to use my name, so I just called it the Genius Act.
That's genius. This is just great. The light bulb is a nice touch. Some memes just seem to be made for me personally, or you maybe, I don't know, depending on the meme. But this one,
I am a piece of shit.
it's like the "We Are the World" type of thing. It goes on from there, but that's the best part. Okay, so something happened yesterday. My wife and I did something. We went to pick up a car, that needed repair. It was a whole thing. But somehow I left CNN on. Like, that's just a weird thing. Like, I was coming in and out of the house, and I come in the house, and they're pretty shocked about something. And it was this. Today's, whatever it is, the Friday, the 21st of August. So this.
Michael Cohen, Donald Trump's one-time lawyer and fixer, whose testimony helped make his old boss a convicted felon, is now doing all he can to win back the president. This evening, he released a portion of a radio interview he did, kissing up over and over again with the guy he not too long ago called a racist and a con man. Cohen was the only person to serve prison time in connection with the president's multiple felonies. In 2018, he pleaded guilty to 8 criminal counts implicating the president in a payment scheme to silence women who claimed to have had affairs with Trump ahead of the 2016 election. Cohen did more than a year in federal prison, wrote 2 books about it, titled Disloyal and Revenge. Revenge's subtitle, by the way, is How Donald Trump Weaponized the U.S. Department of Justice Against His Critics. And the irony of that will become apparent shortly. In 2024, Cohen became a star witness against the president, who would go on to be convicted of 34 New York State felony counts of falsifying business records.
Yeah, what happened to that? Remember that? I was like, I kept on saying, call me when he's in jail. Like when there's actually, of course, we all know what happened. Nothing. In fact, he's more emboldened and empowered than ever. He's got the Supreme Court ruling that a president can basically commit any crime and it's okay. And he's gone full,
related to hush money payments to adult film star Stormy Daniels. The president denied the affair, the convictions under appeal, and you would imagine that the rift between former client and former fixer would be unfixable, especially given all they said about one another.
He's a weak person, and by being weak, unlike other people that you watch, he's a weak person.
I know what Mr. Trump is. He is a racist, he is a con man, and he is a cheat. Mr. Trump called me a rat for choosing to tell the truth, much like a mobster would do when one of his men decides to cooperate with the government.
But he's a sleazebag. Everybody knows that.
Well, once a sleazebag, apparently not always a sleazebag. Our first inkling of the reconciliation came in January when Cohen went on his Substack claiming that he, quote, felt pressured and coerced, unquote, by New York's Attorney General Letitia James and Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg to testify against the president. Then today...
He was pressured and coerced. They said, if you don't testify, we're going to fucking charge you with these crimes, right? Because he was fucking committing crimes. He was Trump's fixer. They're just like horrible people. Like, he was a gangster's lawyer. He just called Trump a gangster, criminal. Trump called him a rat because they were both doing crimes, right?
Cohen, who's now a New York radio talk show host, posted this teaser for the conversation he recently recorded with his old boss, and now it seems his former nemesis. Quoting his post, after years of betrayal, heartbreak, fury, and silence, 2 men who once stood together against the world face the impossible question, can forgiveness resurrect what hatred destroyed? Well, he plugged the taped interview again on The Lead with CNN's Jake Tapper and followed up with this in the on-air run-up to his 6 p.m. broadcast on WABC Radio.
The president and I, over the course of the past 1 year, have seen each other 3 times. And during those meetings, they were emotional. They were familiar. Again, it's very tough to describe the feeling. We had a friendship for 15 years.
Very close friendship.
That was rocked by politics, by the weaponization of the Department of Justice. And interestingly enough, that's part of the conversation, that there may be no 2 people on this planet that have had the Justice Department weaponized against them more than Trump and I.
All right, so, I cover stuff every day. I saw this last night, and I have so many weird fucking Twitter things up of weird shit that, mostly Trump and government, who knows what else. I already have almost a full video made, so I'm going to go through all that other stuff. And I don't know which is weirder or which is more, like every day there's so much shit. Like once in a while you're like, all right, this is kind of a bombshell thing. Trump is threatening economic disaster against Iran as we hit 40 trill in our deficit, and they're all blaming Biden, the whole thing's just silly, right? The deficit went up $3 trillion every year under Trump. So he added 12, plus whatever bullshit stuff that they did with the bailouts, Trump did, and then Biden did. Then Biden had $3 trillion a year for his 4 years, and now Trump's added another $3 trillion or whatever, to make it to 40. I don't know. He started off, it was like 28, it was like 38, so it's like $2 trillion. So there's no blame. You can't blame one president or another because it's the system. Right now, it's everybody, it's everything. We're spending and living above our means. And we have $1 trillion of interest every year. We're fucked. It's over. And these are just the scumbags that are left, looting what's left. And, this is end times kind of shit for an empire. And you see the things imploding around you. You don't shit out a Biden and a Trump after having all these shitty presidents before. Horrible presidents. And then you have these 2 really bad ones. Senile, old, grifting, corrupt men, who come in and just loot whatever's left. And then, the system collapses. And this guy, right, of course he's going to go back and forth. This is a lawyer, the worst kind of lawyer, a fixer. This is this New York accent and all the stuff he did for Trump. And then all the stuff that, went on between them, and now they're back together again. It's just, it's almost, all this stuff is predictable at this point, even though it seems bizarre. Okay, so then this happened here.
New details about Trump's powerful aide, Natalie Harp. Maggie Haberman in the New York Times with new reporting on video they've seen of Harp at Trump's golf course in Scotland. Sprinting, the Times reports, great distances to keep up with Trump's golf cart. According
to golf court? All right. This is what's up.
The Times, Harp then wrote a letter afterwards to the president in which she wrote, and I quote, "I also am sorry if I was an embarrassment walking the course in Scotland. I want things to always be right between us. I also know I've been distracted all week, forgetting to eat throughout the days and even forgetting to sleep and only catching a couple hours at a time."
How do you forget to sleep? Well, what the fuck are you talking about, right? Forgetting to eat, what, you don't feel hungry? And people can be really in a state of shock, right? You could be in some kind of bad state, because of a death in the family. You don't eat. You're just gone. You're out of your body. But this is just a thing where she ran the golf course like a fucking crazy person, and Trump probably yelled at, got mad or whatever, because Trump's petty and whatever he is, and and so that's.
With all my heart, Natalie. Harp's role is central to Trump, and she is also in constant contact with foreign leaders and the gatekeeper to the President of the United States. Out front now, Maggie Haberman, the White House correspondent for the New York Times and also the co-author of the book Regime Change: Inside the Imperial Presidency of Donald Trump. And Maggie, you note in your new article that Natalie Harp never takes a day off, not even a Sunday, right? She is committed and she is indefatigable. How much does Trump depend on her?
A lot, and it's important to note, Aaron, in our reporting, that story was by Sean McCreish, my colleague, and me. Jonathan and I have separate reporting in Regime Change just about how Trump views her, and part of it is, he will describe to other aides that, and said this during the interregnum period, that, everyone else will go off and make money, she'll never leave, that essentially she is the person who loves him as much as his wife and children.
Yeah, we heard that. All right. So that's happening. So this is so bad, it's become a thing. And Melania was rolled out. Let me go find that. So Trump came out with Melania. Look at her collar here.
Good afternoon. I heard you missed me. Here I am.
So weird.
Good afternoon. I heard you missed me. Here I am.
This is what happens when you marry a fucking hooker, right? Yeah. This is what happens when you marry one of Jeffrey Epstein's girls. The adult ones. Like, Jesus fucking Christ. Like, she hates the Trump. I mean, Trump's, humiliated her, embarrassed her various times, but she loves being the first lady. And, the first lady used to mean something. It was supposed to be, they were supposed to be dignified and, women of substance, not some, some woman who's got soft porn fucking photos published in the New York Post, right? Like, that were out there, and related to Jeffrey Epstein and all the weird shit with Michelle Obama and all these various, and of course Joe Biden handling her fucking. I mean, it's just everything's like a joke now. They've always been scumbags, the politicians. I mean, they're always powerful. They're always power hungry, fucking shitty people. But they used to hide it better, And I don't care. I mean, I'm glad it's out in the open. Like, I don't mind. Like, that's one of the things I really, really liked about Trump 1. Trump wasn't pretending to be some, great, nice politician, all this stuff, some fake fuck. Like, he was unabashedly who he was, right? Like he was himself, which is a demon, right? They're all demons in one way or another, just Trump is a bigger one. So I haven't even looked through Twitter today. And I may not add anything to this video because it's already going to be really long. Today the video doesn't come out till, I guess, tomorrow morning. Is that it? Yeah. Somebody wrote here, haha, not fair, not far from the truth. Be sure to strap on those knee pads, little Marco. Remember, I used to call Kamala Harris knee pads Harris. That was
cabinet positions. And I felt that I could better serve as press secretary because I am tired of the memes of me in the Oval Office wearing big shoes and other stupid costumes. I think I do this look better, and it will give me an opportunity to be the bitch I always wanted to be. So if you think Levitt was badass, get ready. I leave sparks, not trails. I will be holding my head high and holding my middle finger higher. If I was you, I would want to be me too. One thing I have to deal with. This thong is killing me. It's all fun and games until your underwear starts participating in a conversation.
Oh, that's amazing. Like, they got his voice and everything. Marco Polo Rubio.
To answer your questions, the president, and I thought it was time for a...
All right, so there's that. Okay, so for a brief period of time, because it just went past $40 trillion, the debt, right? I have a clip already, I think, in this video or my last video where Trump is saying that, it was at 18, I think. You guys probably just saw it. But I think he said it was at 18 when he was running in 2016, which makes about sense. So that was what it was around then. When I first started covering this, it was like at 14. So, this is when I realized we were fucked economically, right? I don't have an economic mind, but I can understand being fucked, right? When you're totally fucked. And I looked at this, and you could see this, like every minute it's like $3 million in debt. So you can look at this thing here. I could time it for you, but you can see, right? That's like almost, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4. It takes about 5 seconds to get $1 million, right? So, again, that's not, I'm just counting, but it's about 5 seconds for $1 million, right? Well, it's maybe going to be more than that because it used to, maybe it's faster now. I don't know. But it used to be, A minute, every 20 seconds was $1 million. Now it's even looks like it's going faster. And here's the income. Now it's, this is going to be less when they go the yearly income, the amount of tax revenue. So it's up to $5 trillion, which it used to always be 3. And then for 2 years it was 4, and now it's up to 5, which means there's inflation, right? Like there's more tax revenue coming in. And, we saw this with Elon Musk. He said there's $1 trillion of interest a year. So now, like, just revolving debt, like they've got to come up with $1 trillion. 1/5 of the amount of income that's coming in. It says 5.5, but we'll see what it is at the end of the year. This is like a year to date, not like from whatever it is for 2026. 1/5 of the income is just interest on this loan. But here, down here, it says, where's the total debt? There's like a total national debt. U.S. total debt is 114 trillion. So that's everybody's credit cards, and there's all that. Of course, the derivative market is up to almost a quadrillion dollars. This is the highest I've ever seen. It's usually around 6 or 7, but this derivatives market right here, I don't know what this is happening. The derivatives market here, currency and credit default derivatives, it's almost a quadrillion dollars. It's 941 trillion. I mean, it's crazy. Like, it was $1 trillion. The derivatives market was $1 trillion globally right before the collapse of 2008. And then there's unfunded liabilities like Social Security. They don't cover those anymore, but that's it used to be down here. And I think that's because it's under Trump. So this is a Republican-based site. It's a private site. But they don't show you the unfunded liabilities, which is at like 250 trillion. That's Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, all that shit. And those are things that are not part of the budget. So, and Trump said that if it got up to 24 trillion, the economists were saying there's no way back. But when it was at 14 trillion, because there's no fiscal responsibility. We're living way beyond our means. Like, it's like our income is 5 trillion, whatever it is. And our yearly budget is well over 10 or 12 trillion dollars. And they're not cutting back shit, right? And then these expensive wars and just everything. Like, we have, the first thing is moral decay, moral collapse. All right, so the news media is covering this because it just passed 40, and then they'll pretend this doesn't exist again for another, when it reaches 45 or whatever. Like, it just doesn't come up, because if you talk about it and people see what, like, if you have this much debt here, another 114 trillion debt here, you got these fucking bullshit credit swaps here, you got Social Security and Medicaid and Medicare that are unfunded liabilities. They're not even part of the fucking budget. And then you got our military-industrial complex and these fucking wars, and you got bozo presidents that, in administration. And so America's fucked. Like, there's no way. This is beyond bankruptcy. And so, like, we're going to have an economic collapse, and it should have happened years ago. They're just letting it go. Like, the numbers are ridiculous. Until they have to, like, there has to be a reset, right? There's going to be a reset. And the reset isn't going to be like, better, right? Like, resets are never better. Trump's gone bankrupt 6 times, he knows. Like, there's a humbling, and then you kind of have to work your way back up so you can go bankrupt again, right? Like, for these rich guys. But there's no one to bail America out. There's nothing. There's no, this is just, we're riding on fumes. And so let's go to the people talking about this. So in no particular order.
Even though the debt is too high, even though we inherited this debt bomb from the Biden administration, we actually do have a plan.
Yeah, okay. You didn't inherit it, you fucking lying sack of shit. He's just so hard to listen to. He's so unlikable. He's smarter than Trump, and maybe he would, not be as bad as Trump in some ways, but worse in others, and just fucking icky. But, it was before Biden left, Trump left him, it was, whatever it was. It was in the 30s. Biden had, they both took out $6 trillion of bailouts. And so that was just folded into the debt at some point. I don't know if it all is. But that happened. Like, they both had, where they're saying we're going to do $6 trillion worth of bailouts. So that was a total of 12 trillion. But other than that, there was, it's 3 trillion a year. Is what the debt has been every, year for whatever. I mean, it's been a little bit more, a little bit less, over the years, but it's been without that. So that's not a presidential issue. The president doesn't really make up the budget, right? So like it's silly. Like Biden, it wasn't like there was no debt before Biden. You left him. You left him. I mean, Trump increased the debt. Each president increased the debt more than the previous presidents. So Obama increased it more than where the fuck was before him, Bush, and then so forth and so on, right? By Trump, then increased it more. Biden, and Trump's going to increase it more now. And they're just looting what's left of American wealth. They are, I mean, it's just like you ever see in the Goodfellas movie where they have this guy as a restaurant, and the guy they get the guy so they run up a tab, Joe Pesci character runs up a tab of like $20,000 or something crazy, and the guy goes to Joe Pesci's boss and says, I need you to help me. Guy's just he bullies the guy. He beats the guy up in front of everyone in the restaurant. Joe Pesci does. So the owner goes to Joe Pesci's boss and says, and the boss becomes partners in it, and they just loot the place, right? They run up things on credit. They running shit out of there. It's like just a crime scene. And then the guy, then when it's done, the guy's just he's in debt, and they fucking burn the place right down to the ground. And the guy's, this whole restaurant, he's Italian too, they just fuck him. And so, this is how all this stuff works. And of course, and I don't begrudge them lying about this, because if they told you the truth, it would be over right now. If everyone in the Trump administration came out and said, yeah, we're fucked. There's no way we're going to pay this debt down. I mean, Elon Musk, kind of said it. Here, let's...
And to get the economy growing faster than the debt, and that's the most important thing.
You can't possibly fucking do that. You can't get the economy growing faster than the debt. It doesn't work that way. So the reason that this is doomed to fail, I've explained this before, that you have, you don't have to do the work first. You borrow the money first. And somebody like Trump, rich people, they just can borrow money, even at low interest, on their name, right? And so for those guys, they can, if it's at 2 or 3% interest, they can make more than that. Like they can have a 5% return, they pay the 3% interest, and then they get a 2% profit, right? Of course, there's taxes and shit like that, so that's all part of it. But if you borrow money, you have to make sure you have a return in your investment that's higher than the interest, because but when you're creating money out of thin air in a debt-based currency, you have the money that you create, right? And so there's this magical, this conjuring of this money. I've talked about this significantly in various videos. But there's a sorcerer's fee. You owe the bank a fee, which is the interest. And so the money you create and the interest that you have is always going to be more because of the added interest, right? So like, it's always going to be more than the collective wealth. And so what they have to do is make it look like they're catching up, like a greyhound chasing a rabbit. There's an illusion that they're going to catch the rabbit, but they never do. But when the gap gets so big, like it is now between, where there's no way, if you have only $5 trillion, even if you had $10 trillion in revenue, they will spend $15 trillion. Like they're never going to get it to where there's more taxes coming in than there is debt, right? So the debt's always going to be growing, is going to be running away because of the sorcerer's fee, because of the interest, than the collective money that's generated by the economy. That's why these usury systems are always doomed, because they're just taking this interest off the top, right? They're getting a fee for creating debt-based wealth. It's all IOU. It's not real money. It's not, it's not gold. It's not based in a commodity. And so, this is why the system's always fucked. But they made it into a global system too big to fail, and then they're just trying to pretend until they can't pretend anymore. When that is, we don't know. I mean, it can be known. It's just that we don't know it. But it'll happen. It's happening now, right? But he can't say any of that because it would be over.
Issue that we've had under the Biden administration and what we're still kind of dealing with is that the debt was growing faster than American GDP. That's the problem.
Yeah, that's not the problem. Like the GDP is not, and it's never, the GDP is like right now, I can find out what the GDP is. So the American GDP is $32 trillion. That's gross. That's the national product. And the net from that is going to be far less, right? That's not paying taxes. That's just the gross amount of, goods and services that are out there. Whatever business is being done. And you have a $40 trillion fucking deficit that's growing and so there's never, even if you had a $40 trillion GDP, you're not going to pay all of it on the debt, right? It's only a small percentage that is going to be whatever the taxes is on that. The collective taxes, which turns out to be $5.5 trillion right now. And so, it's never going to grow. Like, it's silly. It's shit you say to people who don't know anything about it. And I don't know anything about it, and I know he's bullshit. I'm not a business guy. But these numbers aren't fucking things that you can work with. If you came in with your personal finances, if you handled your personal finances the way America does, you'd be like, the most fucked person financially in the world. Like, they'd laugh you out at any bank. No one's going to loan you money. You would be like, you'd have like a scarlet letter tattooed on your head. Like, fucking, don't lend this guy any fucking money. It's really bad. It's only the fact that it's a country and the most powerful country in the world that's allowed to go this way. But it's just at some point, there's going to be a reckoning. It has to. Like, the truth is we're fucked, right? And it's just a matter of, when that's acknowledged. Okay. There is two movies that were made, The Big Short and Margin Call. They're like really good movies. Really enjoyed those movies. I watched them probably 5 or 6 times. And would watch them again, multiple times. They're about the 2008 financial collapse in the derivatives market. And, the true stories. One of them, one of them's true and the other one's like, they're both true to a certain extent. But The Big Short, there was a character played by Christian Bale. And he has a hedge fund. He was the first guy to go in and, use his hedge fund and go in and bet against subprime loans. And everybody laughed at him and mocked him. His clients all wanted to leave him. And he went to the banks and they of course they said, oh, we'll totally do a derivatives market. We'll let you short the fucking subprime loans. They're lock solid, right? This is the real estate bubble that collapsed. And it got to the point where everyone knew he was right. Everyone knew that these guys who all shorted the subprime and some people were even shorting the prime loans. And the banks wouldn't acknowledge, that the truth about this until they had their own short position, until they were, they got in on the derivatives market, right? Because they wouldn't fucking, and so there's a period of time where everyone knew the subprime loans were garbage, but the banks just wouldn't admit it. And like, it took a long time for it to happen, right? Like it was like a year, like 6 months, 9 months or something, where the banks finally realized that these people who were shorting that the subprime loans, these loans were garbage. And, no one looked into it. They were loaning money out to people who couldn't pay. And they had these, I forget the term for it, but they had these adjusted rate loans, and they were, the mortgage was like, $1,000 in the beginning and $5,000, all of a sudden. And people didn't even know that's what their loans were. So they took out loans on houses. Like they found these strippers who were buying houses because they had lots of cash, and they were buying rental properties, but they were unfavorable terms of the loan, and they weren't able to pay their loans. And all these people were, the mortgages were, were being, the houses were being foreclosed on, all that shit, right? But the important part is that it wasn't being admitted, even when they knew it was fucked. And that's a metaphor for the greater economy. All these people know the economy's fucked. If I know, they know, right? And so here's Trump.
You better go out and buy stock now. Let me tell you, this country will be like a rocket ship that goes straight up. This is going to be numbers that nobody's ever seen before. That's a very important element of all of this. You know,
Go buy stock. Go buy stock. All right, so this is why we're going up to 40 trillion, right? He's telling these people, you know, the same people that he grifted on with his crypto and he grifted on with his bullshit watch and his bullshit phone, right? All right, so then this.
You know, I'm confident that bonds will continue declining. We've got a spike in oil prices today that I don't really understand. You know, our announcement. You know, I'm confident.
You don't understand why the oil prices spiked? You don't understand this, right? You don't fucking understand. You're the Secretary of the Treasury. You don't understand why oil prices are spiking? It's the Strait of fucking Hormuz. Everyone fucking knows it, right? It's the Strait of Hormuz. Like, you don't have, how do people not know that? Like, ordinary people, never mind you.
Oh, Mr. Secretary, which is, you know, strong signal from the administration on the buybacks, but, you know, the fundamentals are ultimately what is going to prevail here in the bond market, and the fundamentals are hard to ignore when it comes to the size of our debt, with public debt increasing to now $40 trillion.
Yeah, I mean, look, Sarah, there's nothing magic about the 40 trillion number, and we can grow our way out of that. So
no, you can't. Like, just that. You know, that's what they have to say, right? Like, how you're going to grow what's going to happen? Like, so you remember when the internet boom took off? Like, that was like, you know, if you look at cell phones and internet, like something where, you know, everyone's got to have a cell phone, and now the internet, and there was, you know, the whole .com bubble and all that shit that happened, right? If you look at the housing bubble and the .com bubble and the crypto bubble, you know, like, what's going to be out there that's going to be as global as cell phones and internet, and that's going to, I mean, you know, what, you guess is going to be a robot bubble, or, you know, like, it's not going to happen. Like, there's nothing there. Like, those things didn't do enough to, you know, when that was happening, there was no, you know, maybe there's a brief time when under Clinton where there was more income than there was debt. I don't even know. I think that maybe it was before him. I don't know what it was. But there's a period of time, how many years, when was, you know, I can ask ChatGPT here in a second.
But what we do want to signal is I think that there's been a lot of misinformation in terms of what's going on with the deficit, what's going on with the deficit to GDP. We actually had a fiscal consolidation for...
So this is what like fucking Ponzi scheme guys say. Like, they try to, like, you know, fudge the numbers. But, like, you know, it's a relationship between the income, which is taxes, which has never been more than $5 trillion. It's only been $5 trillion the last 2 years. It was just 2 years before that, right? Well, here, we can look at it. Okay, so this was the internet bubble here. The last time there was a budget surplus was in 2001, right? And, you know, but then they just went fucking nuts. So here it is. So back in 2016, there was $3 trillion tax revenue, right? So each year it went up, the amount of tax revenue, but of course the debt went up more. Like, you know, the debt's going up by $3 trillion a year, and the tax revenue is going up by almost by nothing here. 327 to 32 to 33 to 346. Again, it's only going up billions. It's not going up trillions, right? It's going up marginally. 342 to 489. Then it went down in 2023, and then back up in 2024. And then back up in 2025, 5 trillion, 5.2 trillion. And that's going to be a little bit more than that. Then it'll go up to 6 trillion, but it's going up marginally. Every year it's going up by $3 trillion in debt. And so there's $1 trillion of interest. And so the tax revenue was what matters, because that's your income. It's not the GDP. It's like you're chasing the rabbit, like I said. You know, you never catch the fucking rabbit, you know, in dog races. Like, one time it's happened where, you know, they have a car driving around the track, and then the dogs are chasing this rabbit, you know, the dog racing. But, you know, they're muzzled even when they do catch it, right? They can't do it, and the rabbit's not real. And so, you know, this is where we're at as a country. There's no, you know, this is black-pilled 101. Like, you can't do anything about this. And the debt isn't even the worst thing. It's the immorality. It's the quality of the people. It's the, it's the internet. It's the internet. It's the, the degradation of human beings. I mean, that's the worst thing. The lack of, being natural human beings, idiocracy setting in, getting stupider and stupider, getting more immoral. It's the quality of the people that's really the problem. That's, more than anything else. If you had amazing people could solve this problem. Amazing people could all figure out how to tighten up their belts and come together. If you had saints, higher developed souls, who understand how to deal with moderation and how to deal with, but you got a bunch of frickin' people who have been completely materialized in the capitalist society. They're completely, everything's about their material possessions, and we're consumers. We consume, gluttons. Sticking as much as you can into your fucking ghoul hole, right? Like, that's the problem. This isn't a problem, and the debt-based system is a condition that creates people like that. We're 100% focused on our materiality and consumers, right? After 9/11, George W. Bush said, go shopping. Because that's what you're supposed to do, spend more money. Go shopping. The more shopping you do, the more, to grow the economy. But you have people hoarding wealth, that isn't, debt-based wealth. It doesn't really, it's all fucking, illusionary. And then it's just going to go kapoof. And everything's going to go back to what its, true value is. You can never stop the truth from coming out. When you have an abomination like this demonic system, it's inevitable it collapses in the fact that you're going away from God. Everything's going to collapse, even a system that's based in divinity. The ones that aren't, they collapse of their own depravity, of their own demonic nature, right? It's, it's what has to happen. Remember there's a leaked video of the Afghanistan military that was being trained by Americans, and they were like bumping into each other. They couldn't do jumping jacks. They were uncoordinated. There's somebody, I was making fun of it. Somebody who I guess was from Afghanistan showed up on my channel and was calling me a racist because, and then, I don't know if this is true or not. This is somebody posted this as IDF soldiers. Now, again, I was going to put this right after what I covered yesterday, which was Huckabee saying that Jews were a superior race, God's chosen people. And whenever you get that's the racist part. Like, you get that when you start saying you're the chosen people based in genetics. I think the Sajmarg meditation system is, just a phenomenon to what's been offered in spiritual evolution. Like, it's the best system to connect to God. And, the people that do it are like the luckiest people in the world. Like, they're just, I mean, it's just anybody who gets just a taste of it. I mean, even the people who hear about it, because it's such an unknown entity. Even you guys who get just hear about it, whether you have the option that you know about it and could do something about it, right? But just from my experience of the system. But, the people who do the system, a lot of them, I mean, we all suck to whatever degree. I mean, that's part of the system. You're supposed to realize that you suck and you have to change. You have to evolve in so many ways that, like, I mean, beyond my capabilities, like, just personally. Like, we all suck, and we don't deserve such a great system. I mean, in some ways, the system it's called the natural path, but it's also, you're getting things you really don't deserve, even as spiritual as you might have been in the past life. But the people that do the system, it's the system that makes you better. It's God that makes you better, right? It's not you. Like, it's just that you're willing to cooperate, which is a great thing. Like, if you're willing to cooperate with God, and you're willing to take God into your life and your heart and these things. But there's no people who are just chosen based on whatever, right? People born into wealth, people born into some bullshit, religion. There's no chosen people, right? There's only fucking, people who are willing to serve God. And the idea of, that our race is better than your race, or our people, our religion is better than, we're better because, this thing that we do. No. You're lucky because of this thing that you do, right? If it's a good thing. But if it's not a good thing, you're not lucky. But anyways, there was this idea that these were the chosen people. And here it is. Like, here they are. Now, I don't know if this is true or not, but it's funny. I mean, I would assume there's got to be something here. There's there's the cream of the crop there. The guy doesn't even have his hat on right. All right. So, the chosen ones. So I just saw a meme where Laura Loomer is really mad about Natalie Hart, but
New from Donald Trump and Mattel, it's Harpy, the doll that will never leave your side.
I'll climb in the trunk to be with you. We will always be together.
Harpy is the doll that never wants to stop playing.
I want things to always be right between us. Always. With all my heart.
Harpy, for ages 80 years old and up.
This was one of my favorite memes. That's just great.
Come play with us, Donnie. Forever and ever and ever.
Cantina.
Oh, just amazing. I didn't see the whole thing before. I just saw the beginning. Great. 8 years old and up. All right, so this happened too.
Credit, and we have the best credit, and we'd pay off the debt very easily, very quickly. But if some credit, and we have the best credit, and we'd pay off the debt very easily, very quickly.
Yeah. What does that even mean? Like, you have the best credit? You can borrow money from other countries? Like, this is bad. Like, I mean, this guy who it's not just him. I mean, this is fiscally irresponsible since 2001, the last time the budget was balanced. And then, there was like a $9 trillion debt, right? So it went back, I mean, whatever it was back then, 2001. But, I mean, now the derivatives market and all that shit has just dwarfed everything. Going back to this Natalie Harp thing, nobody even knew her name before that book came out. Like, she was there with Trump, influential person in his life, changing his diapers, whatever fucking weird obsession shit she's got with him. And then that book came out, and people around Trump ratted her out. Like, talked about how weird it was. Like, these were people, all leakers in the Trump administration. And then it comes out that there's this weird relationship, and then all these things come out with it. Like, where do they get all these letters? These are private letters to Trump, love letters, and people are leaking them, right? Like, people within his circle. This happened with Pete Hegseth. When the Signalgate came out, like, then he had to fire a bunch of his buddies, not because of Signalgate. But Pete Hegseth brought in a bunch of MAGA buddies. And these were 5 MAGA guys, and they were so competitive with each other that they all had to be, like, demoted or fired or whatever. Like, because they were in it, and whatever they were doing, they had their own agenda. And these people, they'll kiss Trump's ass for now, but they're horrible people. And they all have their own personal agenda. They'll turn on him in a second. And they already are. They're leaking shit. I mean, these are, hardcore MAGA people. But they all know he's a piece of shit. And all jump ship like rats jumping off a sinking ship. And, you'll see, everyone will see this as it goes forward. But, I mean, this is, what happens. Like, the truth has to come out. Like, it just does. And now, like, this weird relationship with him and that woman is there. And so, yeah, I was meant to play this clip before about him talking about the debt. But, like, that's just unrealistic in every possible way. You're going to borrow more money? Our credit's good, so we can pay down the debt. What? What, your credit's good? The fuck you talking about?
But if some credit, and we have the best credit, and we'd pay off the debt very easily, very quickly.
Yeah, by borrowing $40 trillion. And then you'd have a higher interest rate? Like, what are you fucking talking about? Like, you don't pay off debt, by borrowing, creating more debt under worse terms. Right? Okay, it's time for me to wrap this video up. It's a weird video today. Weird day for me. Woke up really early. And then there was a minor crisis, not really involving me and my wife, but just some kind of thing we got involved in that turned out to be nothing, really. Kind of silly. And then, just a weird day. And when I'm looking at all these clips and these videos, I'm not sure what I'm going to title this fucking thing, but I think I already had a title for it, but it just keeps on getting weirder and weirder. Like, to the extent I don't know, like, what's, like, it's just, like, all so fucked up. I started this video, like, 2 days ago or, like, yesterday, and I don't even remember what's in the beginning of it, and I already got more stuff I didn't even get to, and, like, it's just all a mess. It's just a, like, it's almost like the planet isn't, it's America or whatever this is so diffuse. Like, it's just, individual pieces. It's not like it's connected anymore, right? Like, everything is just operating independently and not a part of a whole. Like, it's just a bunch of shit bumping into each other, if that makes sense. Just woke up from a nap, so. But there's a Whispers message I wanted to read. I think there's 2 of them. Sunday, April 29th, 2001, 8 a.m. In this world, everything is mere illusion. I think one of my viewers sent me this, which I already get them. But one of the ones that I was sent is one that somehow didn't get emailed to me. Sometimes that happens. I don't know why. And it wasn't in the spam folder. But anyways, in this world, everything is mere illusion. You are only a representation of yourselves, some assembled molecules vibrated in tune with this planet's vibration. Keep well in mind, all of you, this illusionary aspect of your person. Take only the essential to heart. So it says again, in this world, everything is mere illusion. You are only a representation of yourselves, some assembled molecules vibrating in tune with this planet's vibrations. Keep well in mind, all of you, this illusionary aspect of your person. Take only the essential to heart. The rest that you say, your little daily lives, your habits, your worries, the rest, that is to say, your little daily lives, your habits, and worries about everything or nothing. What is it in the light of eternity? A trifle. What matters only is the purpose of your existence in the great divine plan, as well as your place in it, minor though it may be. This plan does not compromise any dissonance. You need to be able to adapt to it perfectly by adjusting yourselves as well as possible to the sublime pattern. All your efforts must be focused on this quest. Once awareness has risen within you, you must no longer lose sight of your objective. It is only about succeeding in this adjustment which will enable you to find again your real place, your homeland. Understand clearly, all of you, what is implied in this speech. The process has already started for all of you. You are on your way and you are shaping your destiny. You have understood where your priorities are, as well as your efforts you must make to reach the goal. It's up to you to make your choices in life. Nobody can do it for you. May you all then be inspired, and after a hard-fought struggle with this unceasing, fruitful fight, be blessed in your undertakings, Babaji. That's kind of an epic Whispers. And so, was there another one that was also, I think? So the following Whisper, these are going in chronological order. So this is the same day, Sunday, April 29th, 2001, 10 a.m. Tomorrow, all will be love. All will be but love. Which means it's Babaji's birthday tomorrow. So Babaji's giving these messages, but, he's no longer in physical form. He was born on April 30th, and this would be a celebration in 2001. We will remain in reality of the earthly existence of each of you. It is not easy for any of you. We are trying throughout these messages to make you all understand the meaning of all the ordeals you have to go through. Our way, no more than any other, can make you escape your human condition. It transforms your lives in many respects, but it does not spare you from the sorrow and suffering that inevitably occur. A spiritual approach provides it with a profound meaning. It transforms your condition and lightens your burdens. Thus you can all better situate yourselves in this, situate yourselves in time and space, and you no longer isolated, lost in the middle of this immensity. The loneliest among you is part of a large family of souls that end up finding each other again. They gather together according to well-established rules, and their destiny is achieved at the highest level, where shadowy areas have disappeared, and only beauty remains. Sooner or later, the jigsaw is pieced together. All the parts fit together perfectly. Perfection in this purpose of all things in the kingdom of the divine creator. Movement and action have no other goals than this culmination. Become aware, all of you, of this quest for beauty and perfection. You will have understood a great truth, Babaji. So that was interesting. And then there's the following one. And again, these are all from 2001, the year of 9/11. Monday, April 30th, 2001, 8 a.m. Rejoice, all of you, through this birthday celebration that is gaining more importance in the world. With the passing of years, it is the mission that we celebrate. It advances step by step and conquers the hearts and the sincerity of this path. Its sobriety and the simplicity of the practice are adapted to modern times. These messages were meant to be for the future, for the majority of people. I don't know how that's going to all work out now, but when you read them, it sounds like they're being addressed to you in the moment, but this is, again, 25 years ago. Communing with oneself, cutting oneself off from the world at some time during the day has become a necessity for our aspirants. They feel all the benefit they get from this plunging into themselves. Having a little bit of trouble with my voice here. They empty themselves, their heads, of the worries to let themselves be carried away from other shores, less tumultuous, where the soul can recognize itself and feel its existence. The meditation has its own importance. It leads you all to an ecstatic moments that reconcile you with life. This life does not bring only good moments to you all, but it offers you this way towards a luminous world adorned with all graces. While time is slipping by, you all give them their true place. Give their true place to their abhyas. You all give them their true place to their abhyas. They open up new horizons to you. You discover another aspect of your person, and your true identity appears to you. You will discover that you are different, no longer granting the same importance to things around you, knowing how to make other choices that better correspond to the inner state by letting the best in you emerge. Your everyday lives will be transformed at all levels. This is the desired goal, Babaji. Okay, so there's one more here in a row. I think this will be all for these. I don't know. I haven't read this yet. Monday, April 30th, 2001, 10 a.m. So it's from the same day. That's why I'm reading this. These messages in a certain way are starting to soar. Under their apparent simplicity, they will be able to touch hearts. These had not been released yet. So they were, they weren't going to be released until 2005. So we didn't even know about them back then. Some people did, but almost nobody. And I wasn't one of them. Some will find them meaningless when there is not a readiness to receive them. They cannot touch the right chord. Others will consider that they come at just the right moment and will welcome them. Relax, my daughter. She's the medium, this French woman. Relax, my daughter. Gain stature. The celebration day is special. Graces are bestowed on people of goodwill. May all your hearts, wherever they are, be feeling them. Set aside moments of meditation. Be united in prayer. Think of your brothers and sisters who do not have the luck to be on their way towards the ultimate goal of their existence. A very big gathering cannot take place this year in India for reasons of the climate Therefore, the celebration is being held in another way. It reaches you. It teaches you how to create within yourselves a special condition that enable you to feel the effects produced by the union of all hearts converging towards the same celebration, which is what we're doing now with gratefulness meditation, because the organization is dodgy. Dodgy is the current master and president. Shit the bed. Feel within yourselves the power of this egregore, which intensifies as time goes by. Be happy to belong to this family of souls. It will continue to grow prodigiously. Let yourself be carried away by this mysterious wave that is rising up to your feet. You can give thanks for blessings, for being blessed in this way. Please be aware of that fact. This is our wish for today, Babaji. So yeah, there's that. Okay, so I was just Xing out of something, and I saw that Charlie Kirk channel now says Charlie Kirk and Andrew Covert. Andrew Covert and his little pal Blake. And that was a lame one. My voice is a little hoarse. Anyways, let me wrap this one up here, and I'm going to start making my next video tomorrow, or later today, probably tomorrow. Only spirituality will save this world. It's paramount, definitely important for the apocalypse and the ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.